5,000 years ago, in years of despair, humanity was on the brink of extinction. To save a rapidly deteriorating world, 4 great heroes went into battle against Erebos, the spawn of evil. Among them were the archmage Elfess, the stargazer Luna, a master smith of the dwarven race, the divine smith Dweno, a great warrior among the beastmen. Arron is brave. Last but not least, the dragon ruler Lusinas the wise. When these heroes came out to fight, things didn't work out in their favor. Some were defeated, and some were in critical condition. And that's when Lusinas turned to Kyle. The guy was trying with all his might to heal her huge wound, so he asked not to talk. But she told him to take her dragon heart and finish what he'd started. Kyle asked her to shut up because he was going to save her. The interlocutor objected that there was no need to do that. It was too late for her. But the guy stood his ground and told him to stop talking, because she was keeping him from focusing on healing. The dragon ruler didn't listen to him, and pulled out the heart herself. Afterwards, she asked him if he remembered their first meeting. They would save the world. In desperation, the guy got mad at her and called her a dumbass lizard. Then Lusinas apologized for leaving everything to him. Having given her heart away, she was greatly grateful to all her comrades, so she thanked them for always being there for her. And so the dragon's heart gave up all its power in a huge pillar, rising upwards. All that power went straight into Kyle's body. He stood right in front of Erebos and told him that he would definitely kill him even if his body burned to the ground. He's definitely going to kill him at any cost, and take his soul with it. This guy is the hero of an origin story named Kyle. And without a second's hesitation, he rushed to attack the evil creature. The woman was reading a book that said that on the night, the echo of the great explosion swept across the sky, thanks to the sacrifice of the great Queen Lusinas. The evil spawn of Erebos had been banished from this world, and that was the end. The child cried when he heard those words. Then someone pointed out to Reyna that she was about to read this book to him, but she informed him that it was Leo's favorite book to let him watch. Thus, she suggested to the little one that he should once more cease his heroes at the source, and began her story of what had happened 5 years ago. The baby didn't like it all very much, so he made some noises. Reyna, on the other hand, took that sound as him liking it. Leo himself was already hoping that she would stop reading him this shit where she actually sees joy. Soon the woman read the alert, which said that a great victory had taken place at that time. The boy did not understand in what sense the victory had taken place. He had personally defeated Erebos. In that case, why is he the only one about whom not a word is said in this book? Time passed, and at Delon's school, the teacher asked for a moment of attention. As students should already know by now, they are now living in an era of heroes. It's been 5,000 years since their world has had a hero protocol. During this time, the familiar life changed beyond recognition. And now Delon's school has been chosen to host the Lumen Academy entrance exams. The teacher does not even doubt that there will be heroes among them who will pass this exam and one day be put on the record. But for that, they have to do something. While the man was trying to convey all this information to the children, he was interrupted by snoring. Then he asked them to be more attentive in class, and Leo was sleeping. The teacher said, since he knew the lecture materials so well that they had time to catch up with him, let him ask something. 5,000 years ago, to become a hero, what kind of ritual did one have to go through? Leo hesitated for a moment, and then he declared that it was necessary simply to do something outstanding, and people themselves would bow down to him. The boy was 15 years old at the time, and he was of the Flow family. The instructor didn't like this answer, so he asked if anyone else had any other ideas about it. Then the boy next to him on the left raised his hand, and said that in ancient times there was no way to earn the recognition of the gods. Therefore, the hero was selected by means of sacred publicity. An example of this is the blood ritual, and this answer pleased the teacher, so he said it was excellent, although it was expected from Gullivan's greatest magical genius. This guy is from the house of Dratton. The teacher added that they have high expectations from him in the upcoming exam. The protagonist didn't care about that. Now gods were the first thing to go. What other holy rituals? It is a miracle sent down by the gods to the lower world, to celebrate the great hero's victory over Erebos hero protocol. The guy ended up closing this book, and he didn't understand why he was the only one who'd been overlooked. Forgot to mention that the reincarnated great hero Kyle. Suddenly the children started pushing the windows, saying that they had arrived here. This is indeed the emblem of the Zerdinger family. Everyone was amazed that Celia Zerdinger had arrived here. Soon it was announced that all students were asked to gather in the auditorium. The students were asked to gather in the auditorium. Gullivan asked Leo, wondering if this one was going to pull something to get the attention of these people. How could they care about him at all, though? The hero gave him a surprised look and said he was actually going home. Unlike him, he's not interested in this nonsense at all. The interlocutor was embarrassed and shouted angrily that he wasn't actually bothered by it either. He just wanted to look at Celia as a future rival. Soon the hero was already back and continued his training, which he had a hard time doing. He realized that none of this was surprising, given the regular training. But this body expressed better than the one he had in his previous life. Suddenly, someone from outside him inquired what he was pondering so carefully. It was the girl who had attacked him from behind at that moment. Thanks to his pretty good reactions, and weapon in hand, and the hero defended himself. He said it was horrible to ambush him like that. The interviewee noted that it had been a long time since they had warmed up with him. Scarce talent is no good for Lumen. This will be Leo's final test. The guy had to defend himself once again, and the woman wondered if she could get even tougher. After that, she made her onslaught even stronger and pushed him back a few meters. When the hero stated that the mother's display of affection was too crude, she continued to attack and said, "Even though he tells us so, he blocks every single blow." After another attack, all she could think about was that she had hit too hard. What happens in the event that Leo can't block it? But surprisingly for her, the last-minute guy managed to come back. Then he saw her blind spot and decided to counterattack. As a consequence, his blade headed towards her. By means of this action, the guy got the upper hand, asked if everything was okay. The mother was surprised at what happened, and she didn't realize how much talent this child had. Reaching up, she inquired if Leo still wanted to get into Lumen. The Human Hero Academy is called Lumen. Of all the hero academies, the 4 races included in the Hero Protocol. This is where there's the best chance of finding a record of the guy's past. The hero was well aware of that, so he said that of course he wanted to get there. The woman noted that the members of the Zerdinger family who had visited Delan would be here soon. They, in turn, would be staying at their estate. Leo was surprised, and the interlocutor said it was true she didn't really want to, of course, but would throw Zeus about the conditions. He is, after all, the first deputy head of the family. He might agree to teach him the techniques of the Zerdinger's aura. With that, he'll definitely be strong enough to enter Lumen Academy next year. The guy was interested in hearing all this. But here he was thinking he was going to enroll already this year. The Zerdingers finally did arrive shortly afterward. Stepping out of the carriage, Celia didn't understand why her uncle had decided to stop here. You could have at least booked the whole hotel. This girl is 15 years old and is the sword princess of the Zerdinger family. She thought she needed to focus on the entrance exams for Lumen Academy. And here she was in some run-down mansion of a small family. Suddenly her uncle turned to her, asking if she was curious about this Leo. Zeus Zerdinger is the deputy head of the family. The girl proudly replied that he's a hopeful knight who still hasn't mastered the aura. She didn't think there was anything outstanding about him. The man laughed, saying he didn't think it was that simple. Soon they proceeded inside and met the owners of the manor. Zeus said he was honored to meet them. Raina Flo, who is the mistress of the house, greeted them. Next to her was Dade, the head of House Flo. Zeus, whether the Marquis of Floyd introduces himself to her or not. So let her introduce herself properly. The girl bowed elegantly, calling her name, and thanked them for graciously agreeing to shelter them for a week. Raina reached out to her and said it was nice to meet her. And the girl thought that this woman looked a lot like her father, and also like her uncle. Suddenly, she was even more confused by the fact that she had red eyes as well as black hair. In that case, did it happen to their lineage as well? Her uncle had just informed her that Raina Flo was her aunt. After a while, Zeus revealed that they first looked into Delan's school, and they found it was just chaos, students scurrying back and forth. But not Leo, he didn't care enough to go straight home. Raina was surprised, and said that it was a blow to the pride of the honorable Zerdingers. She smiled, and apologized if her son's behavior seemed disrespectful to him. He wasn't interested in anything at all except training. The interlocutor wondered what kind of kid he was in general. The woman hesitated, and said he was just an incredibly gifted kid. Zeus wondered if the older sister really believed that Leo could have inherited the Zerdinger flame. Raina explained that she wasn't saying that because he was her son. He deserved the praise for his talent and training. With those words, she really got her brother interested. However, he indicated that he needed to see for himself. While he wasn't chatting, Leo was diligently attacking Celia. When the time was up, he sat in the hall and meditated. On his arm was some kind of strange bracelet with energy emanating from it. When it happened, the guy felt it and was glad it had finally happened. The vessel could hold all the power. Finally, the Taki was complete. The reason he still hasn't mastered the aura there is that once he absorbs it, she faces a natural mismatch with this body, and the ability to accumulate mana and spiritual energy disappears. If only he had been able to fully control the power and energy of those guys in his past life. Such a catastrophe would never happen. In this life, he must master total control. First, it is necessary to concentrate in the aura. Suddenly, the guy heard a girlish voice inquiring if he was Leo. The boy looked at the guest in surprise. It turned out that Celia had arrived to see him. It seemed to the girl that his base was at a decent level. She'd like to give her a thorough fencing lesson. Wonder what he'd think of that. That said, she thought that perhaps this way of layering her aunt's skills would work. But Leo only inquired as to who she was. The interlocutor proudly replied that she was Celia Zerdinger, better known to the public as the Princess of Swords. The boy understood all that, and said he was grateful for the concern. But he doesn't think he needs lessons from someone whose skills are his own. Celia was infuriated by this. She wondered if he meant to say he was stronger than her. The protagonist replied, "Oh, perhaps in a battle to the death she will prove to be stronger than her. After all, he can't use his aura yet. But if you only take fencing into account, that's a different matter." The girl wasn't going to leave it like that. So the first thing she turned her attention to was the weapon in the back. Taking the sword in her hand, she said if he was confident in his abilities, she offered to set up a sparring session. She wondered if he really thought he had mastered the aura would become stronger than her. It would be necessary to confront him with the harsh reality. So she declared that if she defeated him, he would be her personal servant for a week. This statement made the leftist smile, and he only asked what would happen if he won. Celia pointed her weapon at him, and declared that if what he said happened, then she would be his maid. The guy liked that, so he took up arms, after which he asked if it might be time for them to get started. And then he sharply shortened the distance and rushed into the attack. The first thing Celia noticed was that his speed wasn't that bad. But it's not enough either way. Leo didn't stop the attacks, and once again attacked. It was already harder for the opponent to defend himself. The girl didn't understand what kind of strength he had. The huge onslaught even caused her to be thrown aside. But the hero didn't stop there either, rapidly shortening the distance again. Celia was immediately confused, thinking about how she couldn't block something like that. Eventually, the guy's blade aimed at her head stopped at her neck. Leo asked, wondering if it was an aura shield. This is already beyond the scope of normal swordsmanship. The girl hesitated a little and said it was just a reflex. It wasn't important to the protagonist at all, he would still win. Celia asked indignantly what he was saying. After all, fighting with and without aura is like heaven and earth. The boy dropped the bracelet he kept on his arm and said they would check it out now. The girl saw that they were magic weights. Before the next attack, Leo only smiled. After that, we rushed to the attack much more rapidly than before. The aura shield that protected Celia last time was destroyed. But she couldn't believe it had happened. Where did such a monster even come from? He's a really crazy guy. A short time later, Rena and Zeus were strolling through the courtyard. And that's where they met Leo. My mom asked me to come over and meet the guest of their house. The guy invited himself in and greeted the man, gave his name. Zeus did as well, and stated that he assumed he already knew. But he was his uncle. Together they shook hands, and Zeus was delighted to see them. Rena wondered if the boy had seen Celia yet. The boy hesitated a bit and turned his attention to the guards carrying the girl on a stretcher. They were worried about the young one, he flashed, not realizing how it had happened. We need to get her to the infirmary as soon as possible. Alarmed, Zeus asked what had happened. The knight began to tell everything. The protagonist wasn't interested, too noisy. The man couldn't understand if he could really convince Celia without an aura. So he approached the boy and said that he was already able to overpower Celia, and that was impressive. Leo said that she had basically underestimated him herself. Zeus asked her what she and Leo had bet on. Leo said that the loser would serve the winner. So for the next week Celia will be his maid. His uncle's tone became sterner, and he noted that keeping one's word was important. But Celia was, after all, the heiress of House Zerdinger. She can't do chores around the house. He held out his hand and hoped the boy would reconsider the deal. He would be willing to offer him any reward in return. Just then, she wanted to say what she could offer, but the boy flatly refused. Leo stated that Celia had suggested the wager herself. Let her be punished if she values the name of her family. Zeus asked if he would refuse, even if he offered to teach him the Zerdinger's breathing technique designed to control auras. The hero felt that the breathing technique, suggested to avoid humiliating his niece, was of no use to him. The interlocutor gave his full name and said that this one claimed he was going to use a direct heiress of the Zerdinger family as a servant, and that their family technique was worthless. Did he understand correctly? Leo smiled and immediately confirmed it. Zeus wondered if he thought it was rude, but the boy had no intention of insulting the Zerdingers at all. If Sir Zeus had intended to teach him breathing techniques as a reward for defeating Celia, he would have gladly accepted his offer. But he just wants to cover up Celia's defeat, which meant, deep down, he, thinking that if the girl hadn't let her guard down, there was no way she would have lost. But even if she took the fight seriously, she would still lose to him. The uncle realized that this kid refused because he didn't like his attitude towards him. That's a pretty unusual kid. If he were a real Zerdinger, everything would have worked out very well. The man blasted the guards and told them to call off Celia's maids, whereupon he approached Leo and addressed him. Stated that this was an informal meeting, so he could just call him. Let them call him uncle, and the boy agreed to it, and when the conversation was over, he promptly left. Zeus turned to his sister, asking if he remembered correctly that she had asked him to teach him the Zerdinger breathing techniques. In that case, he would try to convince his older brother to have Leo learn the phoenix breath. The next morning, Celia came into Leo's room. She was embarrassed and gave her name, said she would be the maid who would serve him for the next week. She also called him young master. At that moment, she was already in her maid's costume. The hero scrutinized her and, smiling, said the outfit suited her. Who knew her sassy style spelled so well in a simple maid outfit? This combination is simply gorgeous. The girl was angry and said she knew everything looked good on her, but compliments like that were ignorant. Leo apologized for that. He didn't mean to make her angry. He simply had one friend who had an over-appreciation of beauty. I think he infected him with it. He said that the beauty of the thing is still incomparable. If peace returned to their land again, he would spend the rest of his life spreading beauty everywhere. The girl noted that he did have a good friend who understood and appreciated beauty. She realized that the guy's problem was only an over-particularity. The hero reflected that Lusinas was perfect, even though she was aggressive. The same goes for the moon. I asked them for something once, namely in the name of art, to pose naked for him. The girls did not appreciate this request and beat him. Celia saw the book and asked what he was reading. She thought it was some kind of exercise book. Leo said if she's talking about her, he used to read it a lot as a kid. This book is called Great Heroes at the Source. The girl remembered herself as a child and thought this was a history book. This made her a little surprised, after which she turned around and walked over to a rack of books. Speaking of being similar, these are the kind of books they especially like. The average explorer, the bikes of heroes are no match for them. Leo said he just started collecting, and it turned out like this. But the girl was interested in the fact that there are a lot of books about Kyle among all the ones here. Guy explained that among all the deeds of great heroes, there are some that are hard to attribute to any of them. It seems to him that these accomplishments are Kyle's. Celia was outraged and called him a mere fraud who had greased himself with other people's accomplishments. The hero wondered in surprise if she was really talking about Kyle. The girl noted that this was what most people thought. At least, certainly she did too. It was all clear to the boy now, what people remembered about him. Next, he got up from informing her that it was time for breakfast and let her go to practice. She called him a young master and asked him to let her practice with him. It was her trick. She wanted to find out the secret of his power. But the hero wondered if he would come out to mourn if he couldn't keep up. Celia was indignant and said that she was from the Zerdinger family, actually. Soon she screamed and collapsed from the pain she experienced. Leo reported when she gets tired. Her reactions slow down a lot and there are too many gaps. She opens her back every so often, like now. Celia didn't realize if torturing her body like this really helped with her training. The guy confirmed it to him. It seemed the youth in theirs didn't feel too sorry for themselves. He was also well aware that compared to past aura techniques, the aura techniques were now much more advanced. Apparently, this is the reason why people have stopped paying proper attention to body training. Aura allows you to strengthen your body. The girl barely got up and asked him what he wanted. Leo shrugged his shoulders and continued to think that if one trained the body, the effectiveness of the aura only increased. At last, Celia pulled herself together a little. She attacked and shouted for him not to underestimate her. Also at that moment, she called him a white-haired puppy. The protagonist, in turn, took her blow very easily. This caused his opponent's body to fly off to the side again. The girl couldn't understand why she couldn't beat him. Leo walked over to her and said she must be having a hard time. So he handed her a weighting device and told her to take it. The interlocutor thanked for it and tried to take it, but the huge weight immediately fell her to the ground. The hero noted that it was a metal weighting device. From this day forward, she will wear it to practice. It had been some time since that day. Celia, as usual, was very tired and asked me to stop. Zeus had been watching their training closely and thought it would be a good experience for her. It would be a good idea to pinch her pride a little before entering Lumen. After pondering this, he turned to Leo and drew his attention back to himself. The boy immediately approached his uncle. That one told him that he was thinking of asking the head to let him pass on the phoenix breathing technique. Leo was a little surprised by this. At that, he began to remember the phoenix breath. Could it be that uncle is talking about the original breathing technique of the Zerdinger family? He had heard that only those recognized as members of the family could be trained by her. The girl was indignant when she heard this, and said that her father would not give his consent so easily. Zeus stated that was the reason he had conditions. And they are that the guy must successfully pass the entrance exams to Lumen. Celia was surprised, because the entrance exam for this academy is a real fight. She told her uncle that the little brat can't even use his aura. It would be too dangerous for him. It only made the main character smile as far as actual combat goes. It seems he doesn't have one of those behind him. He thought that, at least in this life, that was definitely the case. The uncle asked the obvious question of what he would say about it. The boy pointed out that father and mother might be a barrier. Zeus said it could be assumed that they were okay with it. Then the hero announced that he would gladly do so. That made his uncle smile, he thought. He was planning to take the exam himself. Soon Leo said that the break was over and suggested that Celia continue. She chased after him indignantly, thinking he thought she was weak. And so after these events, a whole week had passed. It was the day of the entrance exam for Lumen Academy. There were children around whispering that it was Celia Zerdinger. No one thought they would see the Sword Princess alive. But what was even more surprising was who the guy next to her was. The girl asked if the young lord was nervous. He noted that he was not nervous in the slightest. Next, he wondered how long she'd be calling him that. While the girl was a little confused, the books were being addressed by someone. It turned out to be Gullivan. Surprisingly to himself, he saw Leo flow. He had no aura at all, so why was he here? He also asked Celia how she was doing. But both interlocutors simply ignored him. The boy decided to reintroduce himself by giving his name. He said that they had met back when the girl attended their school. She should know that he's considered a gift at Delane High. Celia apologized, but she didn't remember him at all. Next, she grabbed Leo's arm, and in an attempt to get me out of there, she said that was the end of it. But she was restored again by someone shouting a name from the sidelines. The girl turned around, not realizing who it was. Turns out it was Abat Revelin of the Revelin family, and also Chelsea Revelin of the same family. They noted that they hadn't seen her in a long time. The hero inquired who they were. The girl told him that they were Revelin's brother and sister. They are of the Lordran Empire's League of Heroes, and are also descendants of the Revelin family. If they get in their way, there's no way they should lose to them. The Zerdingers would never lose to Revelin, but the boy pointed out that he was actually of the Flu family. Brother and sister finally approached Celia. The girl confirmed that they really hadn't seen each other for a long time. The boy asked who was next to him. Celia told me that it was Leo from House Flo. It is a famous aristocratic family in the Kingdom of Dalan. Abate stated that it was clear to him it was a minor SOP. At that moment, together with Leo, they met each other's gaze. After which, the representative of the Revelin clan turned around and said that the first place would still be his. Celia resented them when they left. She thought they were arrogant jerks. She felt like crushing them. He suddenly addressed the audience, someone from the podium. It seemed to him that everyone had gathered. This man's name is Arvin Jeroen. He's a professor at Lumen Academy. The girl said she couldn't be the warlock Arvimon himself. Leo didn't realize who he was. The interlocutor couldn't believe he was serious. How could he not know him? This is a hero on the hero's record. It became clear to the guy that he is one of the recognized heroes of this era. So in it he took an interest and looked at it. It could be seen that the mana in this person's left eye indefinitely good. The professor introduced the stories that the participants will face trials in the form of one-on-one combat, as well as battles with monsters. At the same time, they will take turns to perform. Although, in his opinion, all these methods are too tedious, so he just burned the documents himself in his hands, and pulled out the book that had been in his pocket all this time. Thus began the opening of Hero Protocol. It was the loading of Arvi's world. This chapter is called the Prologue of the Wild Forest. Arvi applied his magic to the place, and stated that he just hates inefficiencies. It's because of this that he doesn't just combine everything into one challenge. The hero recalled a story from a teacher, who said that hero protocols are not just historical guidebooks. Its true value lies in its ability to create separate character worlds containing the experiences of past heroes. And most importantly, immersing in the world of the hero, a person can inherit the power of the heroes of the past. Leo figured it was some sort of training system for heroes. Now all the participants were moving wilderness. And so, it turns out, this is the hero's world. The participants have been told that this place is called the Wild Forest. Their true goal is simply to survive. Whether they unite or decide to kill each other, let them do what they want to do to survive. Those who want a situation, let them just smash the sphere in their hands, and that's the end of it. While the others were confused as to where the sound was coming from, the hero realized that the place hadn't changed at all. How can he flesh out there used to be an elven forest here before Silantha, Queen of the Witches, poisoned it? Suddenly someone shrieked in horror that he was the one who was really scared. It made him want to go home. That guy was told it was just an illusion, but of course he's a sniffle too. Leo realized that none of this was true. Even though this world was created from the Examiner's mentions, everything here is absolutely real. Any threat to life can truly kill someone. Suddenly he felt danger continuing towards him. So only at the last moment did he manage to dodge. Next, the guy saw that he was attacked by a girl who was off to the side. Soon, she stepped out of the shadows and noted that they had met before. It was Chelsea who stated that she would be only too happy to be rid of the Zerdinger's henchmen. But the boy reported that he belonged to the Flo family. The interlocutor was not disturbed by this, using her power to ask why he was sticking it to Celia then. She used a skill called Wind Sickle. Seeing him, the hero realized something that such a spell had not been in the past. Though the fundamentals were clearly unchanged, he also drew his weapon. That made his opponent smile. Chelsea pointed out that she was his opponent, and he didn't even bother to tense up. She began to twirl her weapon over her head in order to make her attack, and a moment later threw that spinning weapon at the guy. He, in turn, with just one swing, easily repelled it, after which his enemy's blade slammed into the ground. Chelsea couldn't believe the fact that he'd blocked it. She didn't even feel him using his aura. Perhaps he had the aura of some hard-to-see attribute. The guy smiled and said the obvious one. Perhaps they should join forces. Here, whoever lasts the longest gets the most points, was able to pass at least one test, and that's good. Chelsea laughed. She said, much to his dismay, she is a battle mage. And he turns out he recently told her that her attack was simplistic. The boy noted, wondering if he'd said that out loud. What he meant was that it was too straightforward an attack for wind magic. Of course, he was judging in comparison to its capabilities. She was annoyed if he was going to lecture her on how to use her clan power better. That's what he says to the direct heir of the Revelin family. She was going to kick his ass with these very simple attacks. So she used the wind sickle as well as the wind arrow. But when she attacked, you saw the guy disappear. It was simply unimaginable. She couldn't even feel a hint of mana. But why this was so was unclear to her. Suddenly she saw the enemy in front of her, coming at her with his fist. Chelsea was terrified, realizing that she would not be able to fend off such a swift attack. And a moment later, there was a violent impact. This caused her to immediately fall to her knees and start coughing. And the hero said he was politely offering to join forces one last time. After a while, the hall finally broadcast what was going on. Those in attendance saw an amazing picture of Chelsea being bound and chained to a pole. Next to her, though, was Leo, who was sitting by the fire. As he did so, he smirked achidically, obviously preparing some sort of plan. After a while, the girl finally came to her senses. She was horrified to find herself chained to a pole and asked what else it was. Then the protagonist once again inquired whether or not she would cooperate. The girl shrieked that there was no way she was going to do that. After all, she needs absolutely no one but her brother. After that, she tried to use the wind serb. But surprisingly, she couldn't use magic, for she had some sort of block on her hands. Leo explained that it was a new one limiting the use of magic, and thought he didn't have much mana, so he wouldn't last long. The interlocutor was indignant, and said that even without magic, and we'll figure it out. The hero then asked if she really thought he would let her do that. He pulled the rope she was tied with, and a fire erupted. Chelsea was horrified, so she asked to recover because she was hot. The fire, however, was getting close to her clothes, and soon she was going to catch fire. The guy stated to cooperate. Despite everything, the girl agreed. But the hero asked her to swear on the name of the family. She immediately shouted that she agreed. She swore in the name of the Revelin clan that she would cooperate. Leo was glad for this outcome. He realized that children were very easy to manipulate. After that, he finally untied the rope holding her. Chelsea began to fall gradually, but the guy caught her in his arms and said he was happy to cooperate with the mage Revelin. The broadcast from the scene was still going on. Onlookers were watching intently to see what was going on there. The professor also watched and realized that none of them met the standard. They probably chose to fight among themselves just to be idiots. The only ones who captured the essence of the ordeal were these two, namely Celia Zerdinger, as well as Abbot Revelin. After all, the future of the nation is in good hands. Suddenly, the picture changed. and another interesting couple appeared. Arvi saw the guy and realized it was Leo Flo. That fire performance was a bit immature, but getting Chelsea Revelin to cooperate is already worth a passing grade. He doesn't have the strength, nor does he have the grace like Celia or a bait. That said, he's like an unpredictable and dark horse. Chelsea's wind arrow pierced the monster's chest, and the protagonist finished the creature off with his blade, blowing its head off. Thus, they won. The girl noted, I must admit, that cooperating with the knight made the task much easier. Next, she asked something to ask what attribute aura he was using. She can't pick up on it at all. The guy dumbfounded her by saying he doesn't use aura. Chelsea didn't understand how he was managing without an aura in that case. The hero pointed out that he had a good base, so it worked out without a problem. Here's if you take wind magic, for example, as she considers what underlies it. The girl sensed an enemy approaching from the back, so used the windsurfer skill and sent some attacks there. Consequently, that goblin was destroyed. A little arrogantly, Chelsea said, how cheeky to discuss wind magic in front of Revelin after all. Leo explained that she is indeed gifted, but also doesn't know how to use her power properly. The female companion was indignant. The guy felt something, so he told her to stop and wait. Up ahead, you could clearly feel what your energy was like. When the girl saw the bodies, she noted that they were like mummies, and the hero added that he had already met creatures that leave the victim in such a state. Now, he finally understood the conditions for passing the exam, and suddenly he felt danger approaching, so immediately grabbed his companion and jumped back to the side where the blow came. The attackers noted that they had almost succeeded in trapping them first, needing to get rid of Chelsea Revelin. The other guy is just a wastrel. It was Gullivan who ordered the attack all at once, so the boys immediately rushed into the attack. But the hero was clearly ready for it. Using only brute force, he repelled the attack very easily. This made the other heads with Gullivan wary. Leo only asked Chelsea to stop his back, and she of course agreed. The attackers came to their senses. Their leader shouted, "Why are they frozen? Let them attack immediately." And at that moment, the hero had already prepared for a fight. Gullivan, for his part, was already running away. He thought about the fact that he wasn't just going to give in. Right now, he just needs to find another team. Celia saw him running away. She realized it was the guy, so she suggested that her companion go that way. And so when they arrived there together, they were just amazed. There were monster bodies scattered around Chelsea as well as Leo, as well as the bodies of the rest of the contestants. The girl was very happy to see her brother, so she ran to hug him, and he was glad she was in one piece. Celia, in turn, asked why they were together. The hero came back and said he offered to cooperate. The stubborn girl wouldn't agree to it. But despite that, he was very convincing. The interlocutor was already wondering what he had done. After a little while, Leo began to help those he fought. Chelsea wondered, not sure why he was helping them. Leo explained that they don't need to fight each other, for that's what this world is for. Then he was asked if he was going to fight in peace. The main character tells me that there is an anomaly in the wild forest. Do they see those corpses? It seems as if all the juices have been squeezed out of them all. And that, in turn, is not even all. After all, where are all the monsters? After thinking about it, Celia said that he was indeed right. It was as if they were hiding in fear of something else. Leo explained, it seemed that a high-ranked monster had settled here, displacing the other forest dwellers. It was clear to Abatu. It meant the hero Arby's wanted them to kill this high-octane monster. Leo nodded, confirming it, and immediately I felt a strong energy coming from outside. The same, of course, was felt by the others. They were wary, and the hero informed them that this was the monster. Gullivan continued to move forward, using magic for illumination. To himself, he repeated that he would make Leo fail at any cost. Soon he came across the depleted cases that the monster had left behind. Startled, the guy immediately fell backwards, not realizing what it was. At that moment, drool began to fall directly onto the object he was holding. There was more and more of her, and she was covering the guy's body. He looked up in horror and saw that huge monster that was attacking everyone. At this time, the professor at the academy continued to observe the battle. Some participants had already dropped out and discussed that they had killed quite a few monsters. Then Arvi noted chipped. 500 of them failed. The interlocutor objected to the professor that they still needed to select at least 100, as in other regions. And there were only 50 people left in the trial. Arvi explained that if they didn't meet the standards, he was best to keep them out. Kalian, the head of the academy, had put him in charge of the entrance tests, understanding everything perfectly well. The man thought about the fact that a true hero is born in hard times. It seems that Leo Flo has spotted an anomaly in the forest after all. The professor was watching him now, but wondered if he could stand up to the world. The surviving participants tossed the monster aside when they felt its strong energy. But unfortunately, nothing could be seen. Then Celia lighted her way and informed them that there was something above them. So let them be ready. Soon the light emanating from her blade illuminated the head of a large spider, as well as the man devouring it. The girl was horrified and asked what the hell it was. There was a living person in there. The abbot decided to act immediately, so the wind sickle applied. But Leo stopped him immediately and shouted to Galavan to break the orb. The guy was still conscious, so he saw Leo, and even though he really didn't want to listen to it, he still destroyed the sphere. This caused a bright flash to erupt, after which the guy disappeared. It was then that Abbott realized he could act without restraint, so immediately applied a wind fang that struck the creature in several places. But despite the power of these attacks, the destructive force was not enough for them. Everyone was surprised enough, realized it. The spider towered over these contestants, as thought the protagonist. This spider Princess Tarantula. One of the participants decided to act immediately, so jumped into the attack. But the spider very easily, he was thrown off with just one blow. Now it was Celia who decided to act. She decided to finish her off with one blow. Therefore, the Flominance skill was applied to her, which shot out magical energy, destroying the creature's head and piercing through it. The spider seemed to be done with it, but the creature's regeneration power quickly healed the hole. Celia just couldn't believe what she was seeing. Then the abbot rose and proudly said that the difference between the destructive power of both the knight and the mage was as between day and night. Therefore, he used Rafal's skill, which has accumulated quite a bit of power and wind at one point, and strode over the monster's body. This time, the destructive power was immense, maiming the creature. The boy froze in anticipation to see if he could win, but soon realized that this attack was not successful. Tarantula jumped at him and was about to attack back. Chelsea was scared for her brother, so in order to save him, she used destructive winds. Still, Abbott got a little bit of a kick. He was stunned by this attack, but he was able to successfully get down to the ground. The nurse asked if he was okay. He replied that he was fine and thanked her for her help. The guy on their team didn't realize what kind of monster this was in the first place. It turns out it has simply horrendous regeneration. Then Leo told everyone that it was Salatna's daughter, the Queen of Tartaros. It's a monster from the Erebos army that destroyed the elven forest. The rest of us couldn't believe it, and the boy remembered the mana that was thinning in Arvi's left eye. It definitely belonged to the king of the fairies. Tarantula rules in the cursed forest. She destroyed the forest of elves and bit off the right hand of the fairy king who came out against her. Guy, for his part, thought Luna had killed Tarantula, but it seems she was saved by the fairy king's right hand ending up in her stomach. Or to be precise, the source of infinite life force contained within that hand. It's about the ring of life, which is what fuels her regeneration. Suddenly, the abbot said, if this creature was indeed the key to success in the trial, he would take care of it. Celia wasn't about to give in to him, so she and that guy together launched fierce attacks, delivering a critical strike. The monster had only ever been able to take all that magic on his body. The protagonist stated the fact that it would regenerate endlessly, until they run out of mana. As it turned out, the wizard did indeed regenerate all the wounds quickly. The girl inquired about what he was proposing in such a case. He replied that they should try to work together. The abbot immediately refused. He wanted the highball. Celia didn't want to give in to him, though. Leo informed them that if they didn't destroy the hero's world, they would all fail the challenge together. This made the two men wary, and the abbot said, even if they worked together, it would take time for them to devise a way to kill this thing in one sitting. And no one but the two of them could hold this monster back. Celia knew perfectly well that he was wrong, and Chelsea also already knew that, so the hero stepped forward and said he could hold the monster. But he was told he could kill himself that way. He can't even use his aura after all. The guy replied that he was aware of that, but that he would gain at least 5 minutes. Abbott asked with surprise, at what if they failed? The hero, smiling at him, looked up. He then picked up the weapon lying on the ground and said he didn't think it could happen. After all, wind and fire have always made a great pair. They'll work well together. Then Celia and Abbott looked at each other. Tarantula was preparing for an attack at this time, and the heroes were already hours waiting for it. This situation reminded him of her days. The monster was rapidly approaching him. Attacking, the guy noted that he had already gotten that feeling out of his head. His co-commanders froze, walking away as he attacked. Even though Leo didn't have an aura, he dealt very powerful blows. Once upon a time, a boy was running away from a dark forest that was about the size of a spider's web. This web made his movements difficult and constrained his actions. Consequently, he was stuck in it, and the corner was getting ready to eat him. After all, that's what the web was scattered here for. The boy asked for help at the last moment and remembered his mom. but thought he was beyond survival. Suddenly a girl's voice was heard, yelling for the evil thing to get out of here. The young man saw a bright light. It was gradually approaching them, and it was obvious that it was an elf. It was the heroine Luna. She noted that this thing dared to invade her homeland and devour the performer's right hand. This kind of girl wasn't going to convert, so she used her power, which caused the spider to be restrained into one piece. And the next thing, there was a roll of thunder, and the flash destroyed him. The one who came, he noted, who would have known that nasty Erebos would get here too. Turns out the action wasn't the elf Luna, it was a guy. And that's exactly what Leo was in his past life. Before fighting, he remembered that situation. Just as he thought, this was already his limit without mana. So he immediately turned to Chelsea and told her to use wind magic and point all the weapons on the ground at him. While he was talking about it, the existence attacked him again, but he dodged it. The interviewee noted that if he moved at that point, she could wound him in midair. The hero told her not to worry, he would intercept him. So have her hurry up. Before using her power, Chelsea asked what kind of weapon was of interest. Leo indicated that any would be fine. So Chelsea used her skill to pick up the first weapon she could find. The hero realized what the weapon was from the sound of it. It turns out to be a yataghan and also a half-sword. Just jumped up, he grabbed those weapons like he knew where they were. And next, he immediately shortened the distance between himself and the monster, and delivered several blows to its limbs. But what weapons he had in his hands were soon destroyed. So Leva shouted for Chelsea to give him more weapons. She did so immediately. After receiving a new batch of weapons, the hero attacked again. Celia watched Leo fight. She thought he was their age, but this sight pulled at the god of battle just as much. The abbot has also seen it all. He is far from a minority. A shallow wound appeared on Leo's body, and he thought something else might. His guys from his past life will be rolling over in their coffins if he can't crush that loaf. So they once again threw themselves into the attack. And when the weapon broke, he asked for another one. But Chelsea yelled that the guns were gone. That caused the guy to hesitate a little bit. Suddenly, Celia shouted that they had prepared the enchantments, so let him move aside. This attack was aimed squarely at the creeper. The power of this flame was so enormous due to the combination of the two elements, and it destroyed the monster. Consequently, a ring fell from the tarantula's body. Then it was announced that in the world of RV, the prologue chapter of Wildwood had been passed. Celia finally exhaled a sigh of relief and told her to call it a day. As she did so, she continued to ponder the fact that the heroes alone had held back the monster for a full 5 minutes. So she said Leo did a great job. But she was interrupted by Chelsea yelling that it was amazing. He really did look like a hero from the legends. The boy wondered if it was true. The girl confirmed it. She wanted to become a martial artist, so she was always eager to learn more about close combat. She's no good at it, which is why she's asking to be taught. The villagers could believe it, she said, because she wanted everyone to experience Leo's training firsthand. While they were chatting, the main character approached the ring. He realized it was the same ring that had fallen out of the creature. Suddenly everything lit up with a bright, warm light, and from there a fae revealed itself. Looking at him closer, the boy thought it was Prince Selid. So the hero called out his name and asked if he remembered him, Kyle. The spirit answered nothing, only smiled and nodded at him. Then he returned to that ring again. It seemed to the hero that he had succeeded in becoming king of the fairies after all. Maybe Arvi owns the Mani Eye because of this treasure. Next, it was announced that the countdown to the return of the test site to its original state had begun. Some sort of silhouette appeared in front of Leo, informing him that the reward for passing was the Oath of the Fairy King. The one in front of the guy was clearly familiar to him. Academy Principal Lumen sat quite high up. He had a swanky view. He realized that his examination of the Western lands had come to an end. This man's name is Kalian Baden. He is a master swordsman and also the headmaster of the academy. The girl wondered if it had happened already, but the rest of the lands had only just begun. It was surprising how many Arvi had taken to training. The old man said, considering his methods, quite a lot, as many as 40 people. But she didn't understand if he thought it was a lot. The principal explained that he didn't expect more than a 10 at all, so don't let him swear. The interlocutor thought that Celia or Abbott had taken the top score, but I wondered which one. Callian noted that the report says it was hard to determine. He also made a nomination for the old age of first-timer. It was quite a surprise to the girls that Professor Arby's recommended someone. It could be Celia Zerdinger or Abbott Revelin, but the old man noted that he had not heard that name before. Seeing the battle, the spectators cheered, calling the names of Abbott and Celia. But all of Arvy's attention was honed on Leo. That's why he actually recommends Leo Flo for the position of first-year head boy. He also soon indicated the very reason it was a talent, to be a hero. The director reported that such praise from the army itself is very interesting. One even wonders who the student is. After a while, the main character was splashing around in the pool, stating that only time and care can cure such pain. He was very happy there, so he plunged headfirst into the water. And he remembered the words about the reward for passing it was the Fairy King's oath. There's no reward for completing a level in Hero World, but here's a guy somehow got him, and he's the only one who did, so he doesn't know how it happened. Suddenly, she turned her attention to the entrance, and there he saw his mother. She walked out, determined to ask the guy if he knew why she'd been expelled from the Zerdinger house. It was about saving a co-worker. She had to sacrifice the Zerdinger's flame for that. That said, she has never once regretted her decision. So she would like Leo to channel his strength and talent in the right direction, and she congratulates him on his enrollment in the Lumen Academy. Thus, it wasn't long before the heroes headed to their academy. He was informed that he had arrived in Lumeria, and was asked to check his belongings before he left the gate. The hero knew that this center of the continent called Lumeria, that's where the Lumen Academy is located. The guy was greeted at the entrance by a man who asked how he had spent the past month. It was his uncle, who congratulated the guy on passing the exam. The hero thanked him for it, but asked what brought him here. The man stated that there had been an endless debate in their home all last month. I wonder if he knows what it's about. Leo assumed that they were probably deciding whether or not to give him Phoenix's breath. The interlocutor confirmed his older sister is no longer a member of the family, and he is her son. Not to mention that the elders took a big surprise with his passing the infamous Western Lands exam. What his uncle held out to him was called a spatial key. The boy took it in his hands and scrutinized it carefully. Zeus then told him to open it. The hero attempted it, and magically my spell worked. As a consequence, a magic codex appeared right in front of him. This book emitted quite a strong fiery energy, and her pages inside turned out to be pure white. The uncle asked the kid to reinforce the pages with a drop of blood, and he did. As a consequence, another magical glow appeared, and the letters and symbols have also been colored. It turns out that Leo can now read the book. Learning Zerdinger's secret technique will obviously not be easy, but he is confident that he will master it in the shortest possible time. So congratulations on successfully joining the Zerdinger household. Soon the hero found himself in rather crowded streets. He looked around, for Celia seemed to suggest meeting somewhere around here. Suddenly someone bumped into him and dropped the textbooks he was carrying in his arms. The culprit turned out to be a girl. She immediately looked up and realized her mistake, so apologized she didn't see where she was going. After which she rose and continued on her way forward. Even though she took all the books, she lost something. Leo picked up the card and found out that this girl's name is Chloe Miller. She was a new student at Lumen Academy. After such an unexpected meeting, the hero went inside the room, where Celia was waiting for him, and asked him what took him so long. Uniforms, books, and everything else, they need to procure everything. Leo apologized, being held up by Uncle Zeus. The girl was interested, asking if they had made decisions after all, wondering how it had gone. The protagonist decided to visually show her everything, so he applied the skill. It was that Phoenix flame that they said he would study for a long time. Leo asked if he was using it correctly. The interviewee dropped all her purchases in amazement, saying it couldn't be. She thought it had only taken her 3 weeks just to familiarize herself with the technique, and Leo was able to use it after a little while. She doesn't realize who he is. Soon they were both near the dock. The ship was sailing away, and everyone was looking intently at how huge it was. Suddenly brought in a man who greeted the newcomers. His name is Ain Alanya, and he, the professor in charge of the first-year night class. All aboard, they're sailing to Lumen. This man is using the attribute of ice. After a little while, the ship did indeed set sail. The atmosphere on deck was peaceful, and everyone was enjoying themselves. The hero, in turn, decided to look around. Suddenly, someone from outside called them a couple, and asked if they could have a moment. Celia was furious when she heard it. The guy who approached him is named Carl Thomas. He is from the kingdom of Moira and is an alchemist. From potions to weapons, he sells absolutely everything. Let them feel free to contact him if they need anything at the academy. The hero thought this kid was busy. He said it was a pleasure to meet you. His name was Leo Flo, and he was from the kingdom of Dellen. The interlocutor noted that if he was from that kingdom, then he had passed the infamous Western exam, which was impressive. Leo pointed out, in any case, whether he was the only one who found the situation strange. Carl didn't know what he was talking about. The guy explained that it was so peaceful. It was even a little creepy. Celia assumed it was just a warm greeting for the newcomers who had just passed their exams. What was so bad about this place? The protagonist didn't think so and looked at the teacher. Carl also thought the same as the girl. Why torture the students even before the distribution? Suddenly they all felt a rather violent jolt. Some kind of creature appeared out of the water. Leo said that there must be a reason after all. Carl couldn't figure out what was going on here. Someone has even already asked Professor Ein for help. The man took a sip of wine and asked what more help was needed. They're students at Lumen Academy. Candidates for heroes. If things get dangerous, they can only rely on themselves. And right in front of the ship at that moment, a kraken-like creature appeared. The protagonist immediately prepared to fight and told Celia to keep her cool. But the girl didn't panic at all and stated for him to worry about himself. Suddenly the monster started acting weird and slugged a rook. Leo tells me that this is the kraken's natural reaction to the heat. It starts walking around with water. That's the base. But someone at that moment was no longer having any fun at all. The creature grabbed him. These two realized that help was needed. So we immediately went on the attack. And yet they managed to save the guy who was the first to be captured. Carl watched in horror. Still, Celia's reaction top student West is still understandable. But he, for his part, couldn't figure out what was wrong with this Leo. Suddenly, a frozen tentacle landed right next to him. Outraged, Carl shouted to whoever did it what she was doing. The protagonist saw that it was a familiar girl he had recently dated, Chloe Miller. It was with him that she came across the books. And now she fought quite skillfully using the ice spell. Chloe asked this guy to step aside if he couldn't stand up for himself. Carl didn't like those words. The powers that be don't care at all who gets hit. And so another destroyed tentacle appeared beside him. He's already been destroyed by Chelsea, as well as Abbott. They told Celia Zerdinger that their competition wasn't over, so they rushed to the attack. But the girl herself was of the same opinion. Chelsea only smiled sweetly, looking to her left. Pouring wine, the professor watched what was going on. He told me that there were tones and monsters in the waters surrounding the academy. Kraken is just canon for the welcoming party, and yet, as expected, the headmen stand out. The first to be singled out, Chen Xia from the eastern lands, and also Celia Zerdinger. And Abbott Revelin from the west. Standing out from the north end is Chloe Miller. And from the south, Walden Tyden distinguished himself. Duran Moira is a representative of the central region, and indeed it can be said that the rookies this year are quite outstanding. After these musings, the man turned over his wineglass, and thought there is certainly one who is most impressive. It's about this John Doe. He has swordsmanship without a single unnecessary movement. He moves as if he's reading the movement of a kraken. Ein smiled and thought he'd see him in his class soon. Only a little while later, the ship arrived with the words of the disciples. Carl was horrified to think that he had used up his entire supply of potions. Ein also came down and said that they would have to cross this lake often, so let them get used to it. And now he said to go inside. Next, they headed to Elliker's training ground. It was announced that the admission ceremony was starting. The children were whispering among themselves that they don't take normal ones, although they are fun to be with. The professor asked the children to line up by region. Those with the highest scores, let them stand in the front. The principal will now give a speech. Kalian told his friends that this year, as always, their ranks have been swelled with new future games. He has just a few words for them. If they dream of becoming heroes, they must give their best. One must push one's limits. Those who can't, they don't belong here. He kicked the table hard and broke it. Next he got a little wary and said it was probably too much. Suddenly he heard someone start to scream, and shouted about not hearing him. The teachers thought the longer they taught here, the more the image of the great swordsman faded. Soon the presenter asked the headman of the first year K to give his speech. And so he began to say who he was, so everyone became wary. They were in anticipation of who it would be. The presenter stunned the audience by announcing that Leo Flo was becoming headman. That's why he's being asked to come up on stage. The boy immediately looked at Arvi. It seemed to him that this was the man who had recommended him. Still, the guy got on stage and started reading a prepared speech, while the students were whispering among themselves that they had never heard of him. They thought someone famous was going to be the headmaster. The boy looked at Leo, at his look and his demeanor. Finally, the hero finished his speech and thanked everyone. The presenter also thanked him and asked if he would share his plans with them as a first-year headman. Leo thought they were deliberately forcing him to piss off the other applicants for his position. So he began to tell them what he was going to do. The professors whispered that he had the tongue of a model student. They thought the ceremony would go smoothly. Suddenly, the hero noted if any of them were vying for his place, let them try to take it away. Those present clearly did not expect such a speech. The guy added, whoever they are, let them do it. Soon the students turned down in the dormitory of Lumen Academy. They did a great job today. Starting tomorrow and throughout next week, orientation classes will begin. During this period, regardless of their preferences, They will be able to attend any classes. This is to choose 3 subjects in which they want to develop. Now let them go to bed early so they won't be late for first period. Leo got room 302. Carl, who was next to him, noted that they were in adjoining rooms with him. How he is looking forward to tomorrow after all, and wished the guy good night. The hero also did so. After that, Leo went inside and jumped on the bed. He wondered what he needed in Lumen after all. And what he needs to do is find what he hopes is here. And this is the hero protocol with records of it. In the dining room, Carl came to Leo and offered to eat together. The hero agreed to it. Suddenly, someone came up to him and addressed him as an old first-timer. The guy asked what he needed. Duran Moira, a top student in the central region, approached him and wondered if he was serious about what he had given out in the welcome speeches. Leo thought his words were rather provocative. Now strangers would start coming at him, asking for a fight. The interlocutor was, of course, angry at these words, and he asked if he didn't know his best in the central region. The hero, as well as his tablemate, just ignored him. This made Duran's fury flare up. Carl felt the power that emanated from him. A guy from the central region hit the table where the food was on with all his might, and it went all over the place. Leo immediately moved from his seat. He jumped up and deftly started picking up all the food that was scattered on the tray. Even Carl's food was left intact. It was a record-breaking harvest of a king-style double cheeseburger. To the guy who did it, the hero said that throwing such delicious food was simply inexcusable. The interlocutor continued to get angry and said that he would bring him down in a flash. For some weakling to show off in front of him was unforgivable. Suddenly, he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was a faculty member who said they would look at it now. It turns out that here they have a kid from the central district, as well as a newly minted headman. The hero couldn't even understand when he managed to get here. The professor realized that they had put up a lumen fight on the first day. After all, they must realize what's in store for them. Soon there was an orientation session for the night department. The professor stood silent and let his head droop downward. Then one of the students turned to him and said it was time to start class. Celia, on the other hand, couldn't figure out where Leo was, and he did show up. You could see he was out of breath. And Durand was with him. The girl immediately ran up to the hero and asked what was wrong. Since he wasn't alone, she assumed he'd gotten into a fight. Leo wanted to tell the teacher who interrupted him. He said that since everyone was here, they would start the lesson. He's excited to meet these newcomers. His name is Alandier, and he is in charge of teaching the night unit of the Firstborn. Carl looked at the guys and thought they were trying their best to put pressure on their opponent. The teacher led the story that she provides 3 ways of reinforcement, and it is spiritual, magical, as well as aura. Among them, the investigator has the most difficulty with aura. So he asked, who knows why? The answer was given by Celia. She said that it is because she loses her fluidity in the process of transforming into aura. The professor said that was correct. Whereas magical and spiritual energy are nourished by mana in its natural form, the mana-consuming aura must adjust to the human body. Now, can anyone explain exactly how they use the aura they accumulate in their own body? The girl wondered. But isn't that just squeezing through the effort? This time the main character gave the answer. He said they could apply aura by burning their mana. Alandier confirmed his words. But does he know what the most important thing is when burning mana? The hero immediately replied that it was endurance. Leo Flo was impressed with the professor, so he asked if the man had studied auras before. The boy contradicted him. The man reflected on the fact that he had a good grasp of the essence without taking specialized classes, which means it's pretty interesting. He further noted that they will put the theory aside for now, so he suggests that they warm up a bit. When he began to show the action, the students watched with admiration. The man said what he's doing now is called an aura step. It is based on simple concentration and the level of the feet. But that, of course, is not all. After all, the potential for its application is simply limitless. Thus, the lesson continued for some more time. The students were already practicing this move in full swing. While some were practicing, others were honing their combat skills. Celia managed to use the aura step. So she told Leo, let him call her sis, and then she would teach him. But the hero informed her that he would do without it. After all, the principles of aura possession are the same everywhere. The teacher turned his attention to Durand. The guy was kind of confused, like he was out of place. It made Eladier smile. So he soon drew attention to himself, and said, as they remembered there had been a little commotion in the morning. Chelsea wondered what it was about. Next to her was Carl, who noted, in case you were wondering, that it was no big deal. The girl was interested, so she asked what was there. The professor, in turn, asked Duran as well as the leftist to approach him, and they did. He first addressed the Moira family, and asked why you were so angry. The boy was a little confused and said he wasn't angry. The man stated, "In that case, at the ready. Let them come." Central Region's Duran Moira and first-year headman Leo Flo have a running head-to-head contest for the headman's spot. In this contest, they may use aura without restriction. Duran was a little surprised to hear this information. Not long after the bout was announced, Carl was already taking bets. The genius of House Moira of the Heroic League of Duran Moira masterfully wields the aura of the lightning attribute. He's up against a dark horse of a backwoods mystery man who beat everyone in the entrance exams to become the headman of first-year Leo Flo. The children whispered that since he had been chosen, he must be good at something. But recently, in a conversation with Celia Zerdinger, he mentioned that he doesn't know how to use the aura. They also heard what he said yesterday, and don't understand this guy. Top Central student is not just a title, but this questionable senior has yet to prove himself. After all the discussion, Eledier said that whoever crosses the finish line first will win, and whoever wins must accept the result. That's what competition is all about, so let them go to the start. Celia thought that, to be honest, Leo just didn't stand a chance. But when it comes to him, this guy always exceeds expectations. And so the start was finally given. So the participants ran forward with all speed. Duran shouted to the rookie that he would be the first. And at the start, he did take the lead. Those present said with admiration that this was expected. The first-year headman, on the other hand, I can't believe he's so bad that they're sure he was mistakenly meant to be a headman. I can't even believe it. Suddenly, surprisingly to everyone, Chelsea backed him up and said that Leo's brother was the best. Duran was generally pulling away from his opponent more strongly at this time. Carl realized that he was already halfway there. The protagonist was not going to give up. He already had a plan prepared, so it soon stopped immediately and changed its course. And the guy wasn't heading down the path, he was heading toward the wall. Celia couldn't believe what she was seeing, what the idiot was up to. The guy in turn accumulated a phoenix aura in his own foot. As a consequence, with long enough jumps, he was able to climb the wall, from which the finish line ahead was beautifully shown. In order to fulfill the game's intention, he accumulated even more energy in his feet. It made even the ground shake, and when it reached its peak point, it immediately kicked off. That explosion caught Duran's attention. He saw his opponent rapidly shortening the distance thanks to a leap. In flight, the hero said he would be faster than this man. The opponent could not believe what he saw. Leo only stopped at the finish line, and it turns out he did get there first. So all he had to do was smile at his opponent. By now the students were shocked. What had happened was no joke to them. Duran was the fastest among the first years, and how he managed to outrun him was unclear. They certainly heard that he hadn't studied the aura step. Celia, in turn, realized that this wasn't an aura move, it was a phoenix move. That idiot was able to adapt their technique like this. Carl and Chelsea cheered or something, and won. He acted amazingly. The professor, for his part, watched intently at what happened. He realized that Duran had used his peculiar aura of lightning to speed up. The man had expected it, but this speed was simply mind-boggling. However, although Leo was slower, he was much better at controlling his attribute. He managed to gather and focus the maximum amount of fire aura in his feet, which formed a gigantic step aura. And this was simply an amazing utilization of capabilities. Extending his hand to his opponent, the hero remarked that it had been a good contest. If it had been a long-distance race, the result might have been different. Duran didn't shake his hand and, pushing him away, told him to get the hell away from him. Eladier reflected on the fact that a true hero seemed to have emerged in this generation. Chelsea admired Leo. She said it was amazing, so she would like him to train her. Carl wondered why she was so obsessed with him. He was just as good, but Celia didn't believe it. Next, the guy pointed out, since class was over, he suggests we all go to a cafe. He's respectful today. The hero apologized and said the stink was coming without him. After that, he turned around and left. The comrades asked him where he was going, and he noted that he had a draft class. Carl couldn't understand why a knight would want a draft class. Celia was curious about it too. After a little while, Leo realized that there were still some things he didn't understand. Why the Fairy King gave him an oath as a reward. Usually the reward in a hero's world is limited by the power of its creator. The reward he got seems to be much more useful to the summoner. But Professor Arvi is a regular mage in no way connected to the summoning, so he must have received some sort of magical summoning. In addition, in order to make a contract with the fairy, he needs to go to the fairyland. For now, the summoning is completely useless. Suddenly, the hero heard a question asking if he too had come to the draft class. It was Chen Xia, the Oriental student, and she was happy to meet Leo. The guy also greeted her, and the interlocutor asked to be called just Chen. She was sure he would choose the night division. That's why she didn't think he was interested in the prizes either. Leo explained that he was rather interested in spiritualism. Chen said that in that case, he and Leo would see each other often. The guy asked if he would tell us what spirit had made the contract. The girl immediately summoned it. It was the spirit of water. Afterward asked if he would show his spirit to her. The hero told me that he hadn't made a magic contract yet. The interlocutor was a little surprised by this, but she said then, if he needed any help, he could safely turn to her. She will give a couple of useful tips for summoning. Leo noted that he would be counting on her and also asked how old she was. The girl reported that she was 17 years old and he seemed to be 15. She had overheard it in a conversation with Celia. The hero was a little surprised. Somewhere the girl looked younger. Younger than Chelsea even. Just like that, together they crossed glances. Chen wondered what he was thinking about that was suspicious to her. The hero averted his gaze and said that there was nothing interesting. Then the girl said she was pretty impressed with his match with Duran tonight anyway, the boy remarked. So she had seen him. And the interlocutor said she had. Then she gazed admiringly. And now she said she hoped one day he'd call her in too. Leo smiled and confirmed it. He made his companion smile too. It wasn't long before recruitment orientation began. There were a few familiar faces among those in attendance at the class. The main character looked at it and asked if that was it. Chen explained that the appeal just wasn't particularly popular, much less in familiarization. The guy stated that it was clear to him now, but to hold a class right out in the open like that? Weird. Suddenly a creature appeared in the sky which alerted many disciples. They saw it was a black wyvern but didn't realize where it came from. She even took an interest in one of the students that made him startled. The girl who arrived on the creature remarked to the jerk that she was actually being polite. She further stated that she was happy to meet the first years. Her name was Yura Marine. She is the draft teacher who will be teaching them all next year. Seeing her beauty, the boys admired her. They too were not averse to becoming conscription teachers. The protagonist thought that this woman's looks were not at all like Luna and Lusinas, but she was so inspiring. If Dweno were here, he would clearly go crazy. Yura informed the newcomers, since they were here, they must have draft talent. They replied that they did. The teacher liked the fact that they answer cheerfully is good. That means they will go straight into practice. So she turned to Carlo, who was with the griffin. This man is the second conscription teacher for first-year students. The students will be learning to ride griffins, so have them work in pairs. Someone informed the professor that this was their first time in contact with griffins. Yura was indignant, asking if he had any complaints about her methods of conducting lessons. Let him go if he's not confident in his abilities. After that, she saddled her own wyvern, and just rose up, towering over the students. Carlo was more relaxed, so he asked the boys to follow the teacher's instructions in a friendly manner. This teacher was welcomed by the students. He is more courteous, and than they thought. Some students were still unable to make contact with the griffins. Chen was paired to the left, so asked if she could drive. Hero remarked, "Let her drive all she wants." After a little while, they were already towering in the sky above the water. The kids couldn't even believe that they would be put on griffins so immediately by this academy. Some of them would like to switch in order to rule as well. Up in the air, Chen reported that, to be honest, she was a little worried. But the griffin turned out to be very cute. Leo noted that it wouldn't hurt to be vigilant anyway. Griffins were not easy to control, especially for a beginner. The girl asked if even though he was so kind. The hero explained that she would soon understand everything. Suddenly, Yura used her whistle. And so the whistling sounded throughout the neighborhood. The griffins heard him. It was as if it was a signal for them. The students realized with horror that these creatures had stopped obeying them. But it is unclear what it is with them. Let the professor help them. The hero explained. They were kind because the professor had been controlling them all this time. Yura stated, if they and the griffin can handle it, they can't. Then it's too early for them to become Lumen students. So let them try to control them on their own. Chen couldn't control the griffin, so she screamed. It was then that the hero took over. He reported the griffins of the city and the realization of the attempt to subdue their powers and only anger them more. The girl was a little embarrassed when he took her hand and asked what he was doing. Leo noted that it needs to be managed like this. Under his control, the creature flew very calmly. Of course, the teachers noticed that these kids had subdued the griffin. Yura thought that he had done really well, so she turned to Carlo and asked him if the first-year head boy had joined the night unit. The kid confirmed that he was. Then the woman suggested that maybe he had a private griffin at home. Why he was so good at riding. After looking up information on the guy, Carlo objected. He wasn't from a noble house that could own griffins. Then Yura assumed it was an innate gift. In that case, it seems like they got an uncut diamond. Then everyone moved to Draft Island, a practice area for the recruitment unit. While the other kids were trying to recover, the hero looked around. He noticed the size of the fruit that was hanging on the tree, so he walked over to it and plucked it. A feather caught his eye. Chen inquired what had happened there. Leo said everything was fine. Then he took the fruit and fed it to his griffin. Yura, in turn, said that they should stop idling and get ready. Right now, they would have a practice test. The students wondered if they were going to get credit on the first day. But it's just an introductory class, so why do it? The mentor explained that their path was harder than the other units. Or maybe someone present didn't know that. For a summoner, normal mana control is not enough. What will contract with the spirit? A predisposition is required. And to command them, you need the gift of taming. This is why the number of hotel summoning heroes is always lower than other classes. However, summoners who have achieved unity with the summoner, capable of accomplishing greater feats than other heroes. Did they not come here to become just such heroes? Elsa Dahlia shouted out that it was true. She is a representative of a famous lineage to summon the goals of the North, so she asked what the point of the offset was. Yura began to lead the story that this island is called Summon Island, and the name speaks for itself. There are plenty of them. Summon is the summoner's primary weapon, so credit check their taming abilities. The prerequisites for the credit are pretty simple. Students need to tame a local summon and bring him in. Once tamed and a contract is signed, it will belong to them. The kids are interested in this. She has this expectation from Lumen Academy. Looking at Leo, Elsa asked if this was the first-year headman. Word of his victory over Duran is already spreading, which means he'll be going to draft class. The hero turned around and walking away said that the best should have time for everything. That kind of answer didn't particularly please Elsa. The mentor took notice of them. It seemed that these kids would become key figures among the first-year students. While some students had already found their animals and the heroes were just walking. They paid attention to the old age, but did he go too deep into the forest? Though there was nothing wrong with that, if he failed on his credits, he'd go back to his night unit. Probably thinking about the draft, it's so easy. After Leo was alone, he pulled out the feather she had found on the fruit. Immediately afterward, his phoenix power was unleashed, and that made the feather in his hands immediately burn. Indeed, everything happened exactly as he thought it would. His family was on vacation at the time. His mother was asked if he could cope there or not. It's just my first day at the academy. Not too worried after all. At this time, bright flames erupted near the protagonist. The woman was calm. What could even happen on the first day? But the guy right in front of him saw frantically and feverishly. And this is one of the 3 greatest Phoenix summons. Phoenix wondered if this child of Zerdinger he smelled the flames of Reyna. Leo wondered if she really knew Mother. Firebird noted, so she wasn't wrong. It's true, if she had a child, he'd be about his age. And the answer to the question of whether she knows his mother? Of course she does. She owes this woman a great deal, doesn't she? The creature's name is Farina Phoenix, one of the 3 mystic-level summons. The bird introduced itself, and the boy greeted it. He reported that his name is Leo Flo. He is interested in how they are related to his mom and what kind of debt she is talking about. Farina reported that Reyna had saved the life of her summoner Ellen Lunda. Leo realized that the man was a hero. Phoenix continued the story that Ellen was defending the dungeons in Saren. She had lost all of her companions, and her own life was in jeopardy. It was at that moment that Reyna appeared and saved her. But in the process, she lost her fiery aura. If it wasn't for that incident, Reyna might very well have become a full-fledged hero. Of course, the boy was sad to hear that, but he said that his mother had told him that she had never regretted what she had done. This made her smile, as she was such a knight. Guy also wondered how Farina ended up in Lumen. Phoenix informed him that she couldn't tell him that. Let him better say whether he was not a knight, and what he was even doing on this island. Leo revealed that he is attending a recruiting class, which made his interlocutor surprised. She reported that it seems to be destiny. At last, she could repay her debt to his mother. Let Leo hold out his hand and accept it. An egg appeared in the guy's hands, and the interviewer said it was her child. One day he will be a great summoner, and then she hopes he will make a contract with him. Too bad that's all she can give him for now. The hero inquired on, "Can't we have a contract now?" Firebird asked what he was saying. After all, it's too soon. He might just lose his life if he does. It wasn't long before she realized it was too late. His determination to challenge the impossible reminds her so much of Reyna. So she wishes him luck in doing so. After a little while, the heroes moved on to what you contract. He was in a slightly different space than he was before, and tried to touch the phoenix fire. This caused the small flame to ignite and not start burning the guy's body. He felt very hot. This heat makes it hard to breathe, that's what the phoenix flame is. As a result of they burn to emit such a powerful flame, he doesn't face this pain every day. They are creatures that live by the regeneration of their ever-burning flesh. The guy understands their pain and shares it with them. After a little more time, the flames were calmer. The boy managed to control it. And so the egg he had in his hands finally cracked, after which one rose to the top and began to emit even more fire. Phoenix wondered if he really could. With a smile, Leo confirmed it. Farina was overjoyed. She said the guy is a true genius. Still, she thinks he'll have no equal in this world, so she congratulates him on the successful conclusion of the contract. The name to be given to this child is Fiora. Phoenix Fiora is one of 3 mythic-level summons. Farina entrusts her child to Leo. The hero realized if it was true, Phoenix looks like a chicken. The end even made a similar sound, so the guy thought he was really chicken. While he was minding his own business to the professor, the kids came in and showed him who they had drafted. Suddenly, she asked Carlo what the time was. He told her that there were only 5 minutes left. Besides, there were only 4 of us left. Suddenly, the woman turned her attention to the side. A huge bear was running towards them at full speed, ready to tear everyone apart. It turned out to be Summon Chen. The girl asked if the time was still up. She had tamed a water bear cub. The teacher was impressed by this. Following her arrived Walden Titan. He arrived with a shadow raven. Everyone was impressed, because even the representatives of a famous family could not always tame such a summon. But the guy pointed out that he hadn't signed a contract yet, though even that was good more than that. Suddenly someone from outside shouted, and he was afraid of the white serpent on which Elsa had arrived. The girl stated that she had gone further and made a contract with the creature. They had never had one of these in their family before. It was a Gorgon snake, and she was told that everything was fine. Carlo pointed out to the professor that time was up. And just as the last student was pulling up, this last student turned out to be the protagonist. He took his time approaching the others, and there was a chick sitting on his head. Some guys started laughing because he tamed a chicken. Although maybe now he'll give up after realizing his mediocrity in the draft. But they just didn't understand his summoning. But Professor Yura was dumbfounded. Only she was well aware that it was a phoenix cub, but she couldn't believe it. It wasn't long before evening came, and the children returned to the academy. The protagonist got dressed because he had a meeting to attend. Soon he went to the door and knocked. Then Professor Yura asked him to leave. Leo said that he had been given the message that she was looking for him. The woman asked him to come in and sit down. She said, in all honesty, she saw a phoenix chick for the first time today. And frankly, she didn't think she had an inhabitant on Draft Island. For a rookie to immediately sign a contract with the Phoenix is unprecedented in the history of the academy. The boy couldn't understand what the professor wanted from him. The woman came closer and said that she thought she knew who Leo Flo really was. The hero was a little wary, thinking that his identity might have been revealed. But he soon calmed down when Yura hugged him and shouted that he was a draft genius. Undeniably, a genius. We should reward him for his accomplishments. But they think it's best to keep the fact that he signed a contract with the Phoenix a secret for now. Because if this information is revealed, there will be a fuss. As soon as orientation is over, it asks you to choose a draft class as your main focus. He is born to be the greatest hero whose summoning will be remembered for centuries. Thus, a little more time passed at Lumen Academy. Chloe was walking down the hallway and yawning heavily. Suddenly someone turned to her, shouting for the people not to tear up when she yawned. It was Carl. He noticed that she looked tired. The girl stated that she had been reading a magic book late at night. Heroes in turn asked if he correctly realized she was Chloe Miller. He then took the item she had lost out of his pocket and provided it to her. The girl remembered the incident when she came across the guy by chance. Now she realized it was him, not that she had lost her thing there. A little embarrassed, it said thanks to the headman. Carl wondered if he was also going to the magic class. And Leo said that while the orientation period was going on, he should try everything possible. This was surprising to the interlocutor. He's only interested in magic, which is why he signed up here. By the way, that icebox is going to be the first in the magic division. Of course, he's talking about Chloe Miller now. When they exchanged a glance with her, he felt cold. So he declared that he would rather go farther away. But suddenly, ice magic appeared right beside him. Of course, she was created by the girl to block his path. She was angry with him and said Carl would sit up front with her. She sees that he is very interested in magic, so she offers to help. Suddenly, Leo heard someone shout his name. The voice was familiar, so he turned to the side and saw Chelsea there, along with Abbott, waving at him. It was unexpected for him, them to be persuaded here, but he was glad of them. At that moment, the door to the classroom opened and a faculty member walked in. He announced that he was happy to welcome everyone to the magic class. He was the one who would be teaching them magic all next year. The girls noticed that he was handsome. This man's name is Glenn Holmes. He said he had something he wanted to do before he started today's class. So snapped his fingers, baited a magic spell. The sheets that had been on his desk that same hour began to move, spreading across the audience. They ended up right in front of the students, who were a little dumbfounded at what was going on. The professor informed them that there would be a small written test for them, although the students were surprised that the test happened on the first day. Glenn stated it will be so. Students who do not meet his standards cannot study with him. He surprised the audience with this and added that the Lumen student should snap such things like peanuts. As soon as they are done, have them hand the work over to his assistant Anna. The assistant waved her hand for them to hand in their papers to her. The protagonist turned his attention to the contents and was a bit confused. So this is what the current magical trends are. He doesn't understand why the formula is so confusing. There was nothing left for the students to do but to keep unleashing this test. Someone knew what to answer him, so he answered as is, and time was gradually passing and ending faster and faster. Some were chatting among themselves, reasoning that it was easier than they thought. But some could not understand how they had answered the last question, for it was very difficult there. The hero in turn realized that he was only able to solve one task. Still, he should have been more familiar with modern magical theory before coming here. He was ashamed to turn in such a paper, so his mood was worse than ever. After that, he walked out of the classroom musing about the fact that it seemed he would have to learn magic on his own. The instructor said that magic has evolved a lot in the last 100 years, and while he said that, carefully went through the works. Magic that once required perfect understanding was now quietly used with only the principles of activation memorized. However, this evolution has also significantly lowered the level of current mages, and so he held his hand up to show it to the children. The force he used was concentrated in his hand like a bright flash. It lit up the entire audience, revealing the full potential of his magic spell. When Glenn did, he revealed that it was his essence of magic. He had created it from start to finish. The man wished that they too could become mages, able to create their own magic. That's exactly why he did this test. 49 questions of one shaft each based on simple memorization, and only one question about the true ascenitization of magic worth 51 points. He hopes that each of them is able to answer it. Still, it was no surprise to Chelsea that she couldn't answer him. She looked at Leo's empty seat and thought he'd given up. That was too bad, because she would have liked to go to class with him. An assistant approached the teacher at this time to narrate the information. She dumbfounded him by saying that there was one student who did answer the 50th question. That made Glenn smile and he was overjoyed. So inquired where this student among them is the one who scored the highest grade for the first time in history. He was so delighted and interested that he asked the person who did it to stand up. Anna noticed that this was far from the highest point. Even though it's true, the mentor said it's no big deal. A few missed answers are nothing compared to answering the last question. It's not good, it's not bad, so let the student go up. But the interviewee stated that this is not the case at all. Once again, the man was dumbfounded by the fact that only the last question was answered correctly. Glenn got even more interested, so he asked what his name was. And he heard that this guy was for Flo, so the professor asked him to get up. Carl and also Chloe did not understand where he was. Chelsea then claimed Leo left after he passed the test. The teacher just couldn't believe it. After a while, the family laughed at what the hero had told them. It turns out that he left because he could only answer one question. A chicken in draft class, and only one correct answer on a magic test. In her opinion, Leo is going somewhere wrong after all. Let her just focus on fencing since she's aiming for the night unit. The hero assumed she wanted to practice together. The girl wouldn't mind. Suddenly, a teacher appeared right behind the guy's back. He said, "So he favors the night division." So Leo Flo decided to make fun of magic lessons, and why he left right at the tail end of the test. Did he find it so easy that he didn't even wait for the results? Leo stood up and said that a miscommunication had come out. He thought he'd botched it. All the questions except the last one were too difficult, so he answered only that one. The man was a little confused. The guy went on to say that he had studied the mage on his own, reading outdated literature. That's why such advanced questions stumped him. It seemed to the man that he was telling the truth, so he immediately picked him up in his arms. And the main character was dumbfounded, not realizing what was happening. He saw the admiring professor in front of him, who offered to go along with him. Thus gladdened Glenn and dragged the lad along with him. Celia realized that this is the magic theory teacher at Lumen Academy. He is quite eccentric. Following him here, Anna came running in. She asked if the girl had seen Professor Glenn, if he had done anything wrong. But then immediately grabbed Leo and dragged him away. The assistant immediately ran forward. She wondered what the crazy man was up to again. At this time, Glenn's magic book was opened. The eraser along with the crayon continued to draw on the board. When the task was completed, the professor asked the student Leo to solve it. The guy proceeded to execute. The man reasoned that if the guy really solved the last question not on pure luck, then he must have his own idea of the magic system in his head. That's why I wish Leo would show it to him. He needs to see his true potential. And before he could even think about it, the hero informed him that he had made up his mind. The teacher immediately looked at the board. He wondered if the boy had solved all these problems in his mind. Leo confirmed it. Glenn was amazed and shouted that it had finally happened. After a little while, Arvi was calmly strolling around the academy grounds. And coming toward him with all the speed he could muster was Glenn. He was so happy and glowing with joy that it was impossible to watch. So Arvi realized things were bad, wouldn't want to meet him. It was because of this that he turned around to leave. But Glenn clung to him and thanked him profusely. Arvi used his own magic to get him off. He said it wasn't the first time he'd witnessed his antics, but he'd gotten a little too excited today. Glenn didn't rub the mood for a second. He said he was brilliant. It's about Leo Flo, the one he recommended to the students. The one who's the head of the freshman class. He's a genius. His companion was a little confused. What magic? Isn't he a knight? The instructor objected that that was not true. He must become a mage at all costs. He can't let his mind wither as he waves the metal stick. This is where Anna arrived. Arvi let him go and said, "With you." She was picking up. Glenn kept yelling that giving the guy to the knights was an insult to magic, and soon he was thanking Anna for helping him. The girl was confused and said they better get back to class. Thought she was going to kill that jerk someday. Soon the culprit of the whole event, Leo, appeared in the hallway. Arvi turned her attention to him and smiled. He took a fleeting glance at the protagonist, after which he turned around and said that these mages, as always, they're all a bit out of this world. And now a week has flown by since the end of the trial lessons. Leo was lying down and reading a book called Kyle the Hero of the Source Rogue. The boy sat there pondering his own thoughts. In the meantime, several teachers were rushing to the principal's office with all speed. The man was minding his own business and was distracted when the professors burst in on him. Eladier informed the director that this is just unbelievable. He asked the old man to look at Leo's application. He applied for the night magic as well as the summoning division, for the reason that he wants to be on time for everything. Glenn as well as Jura vied that he would learn from them. Eladier objected that he should get into the night unit. But that's not what we're talking about right now. This is an unprecedented case in the Hero Academy. After all, he has to choose one unit. It made the director smile. It reminds him of that fictitious hero. The faculty, not understanding, asked what he was saying. The man reported that it was about the fifth great hero. He is also better known as the hero of the source, Kyle, a one-of-a-kind master of all three types. Chelsea, along with Celia, continued their training sessions. Carl was surprised that they were even practicing on their own days off. The hero explained that Chelsea asked to train her. The interlocutor asked, "But why are they just running? Where are their weapons?" Leo explained that there was something more important than weapons, and that was stamina. Chelsea joined the conversation and said that stamina is the most important aspect for a battle mage. That's why they're running. So, will Carl please get off their backs? At that point, they decided to take a little break. Chelsea was overjoyed. She noted that it was nice to run on her day off. She didn't even miss it, and she wouldn't mind his run with Leo either. The hero was a little surprised by that, and so was Celia. Chelsea asked what had happened to her. Leo remarked that he planned to run with her anyway, so let her do it properly. The girl noted that she wouldn't run with him. Carl wondered what it was that was going on between them, why they were so close. At first, he even thought they were dating. The family informed her that he is not. After all, he is her cousin, her aunt's son. The others were dumbfounded, so much so that they asked if he was Zerdinger. Celia countered that he wasn't really of their kind. Some family circumstances made it so, but who cares? Hero stepped up and offered to do it after all. Chelsea was actually glad they would do it. Carl noted that he would go for a walk around town since they were busy. As Leo dragged her, Celia asked him to bring her along too. The guy couldn't understand where all the normal nobles in his surroundings were. More time passed and finally distribution day came. The hero headed for the required classroom. Inside, he was met by Carl, who asked him to come up to him. The hero asked if he already knew that he was going to be in class 5-1. He said that even he would not have known that. Leo also noticed that Chelsea was here as well. She looked very tired and greeted him. Carl then wondered what he'd been doing with her all weekend. The hero explained that he'd just been sipping the basics. Suddenly, someone from the back of the desks asked if this was the class of misery. I wonder how many of them will survive the first semester. Poor juniors. He doesn't offer them his condolences. Then a man came into the classroom and asked what other condolences it was the two of them couldn't be jealous of right now. The boys were wary and turned their attention back. And there they saw a man who was their teacher. He said he wasn't made of bridge. This man's name is Herod Edmund. He is the classroom teacher of a class of 1 through 5 at Lumen Academy. And his nickname is the Tearjerker. The boys immediately performed the bridge as the man had instructed them to do. The man crouched right on top of them and greeted the worthless scum. This is the class of losers with the lowest score among the newcomers. I'm sure the people here have heard of it by now. They call him a tearjerker and stuff like that. But does anyone know why he was appointed their class teacher? Carl assumed it was to improve their academic performance. Then Herod reported that Carl Thomas is a typical representative of losers. Doesn't anyone in their ragtag class realize what a Lumen Academy student's duty is? Chelsea presented her version. They must conquer the world of heroes through hands-on missions. The class teacher confirmed it. But here he only sees the faces of those who will die as soon as they cross the threshold of the academy. It would be better to just exclude those pathetic lowlifes who pull down into their comrades than to let them die a little later. That's the reason he took the class of 5. It's also the root of his nickname. The other children were confused, but the main character was sitting still. So the man paid attention to him. He figured this kid might make it. Soon Herod signaled for the kids to change into their training uniforms and head to the range. It's time for the real battle test. It's been a little while, and everyone is already lined up. The man sat in a comfortable chair under a sun umbrella. He said that they would begin to occupy her with the goal of eradicating their illusion about Lumen Academy. They probably think that in this world where life doesn't go away and come at the snap of their fingers, they will be able to save someone. Nella Carvin of the Night Unit with the healing attribute noted. Isn't he in no way companions should protect each other? The class teacher objected and said that one can only rely on oneself. Only if one has enough strength to overcome any danger can one think of helping someone else. But what made her think she could help anyone at all? Suddenly another girl raised her hand and said confidently. The man wondered if that meant they could test her capabilities. Have her create a fireball. The girl did it immediately. Her name is Elena Layden. She's from the Night Division as well as the Magic Division. The instructor looked at what came out and asked if that was it. With a fireball like that, it was doubtful that she could kill even an ant. That made the girl smile. She asked what if she put a little more mana into it, and she did. As a consequence, her firepower increased. She wondered what the teacher would say to that. Herod realized that she could not only support 2 orbs, but also double their power. That's really impressive. But how about you hit this little girl with your spell? Speaking of this, the professor called upon one fairy, which immediately headed in the direction of the girl. She touched her nose as if in jest and laughed. Of course, Nella got very angry about it. So, getting angry, she tried to hit the little fairy, but she easily flew to the side and continued laughing. Then Hard wondered what was the point of strength in numbers if she couldn't even hit. Had it finally gotten to her? They all lacked efficiency in their use of skills. It is necessary to hone them as well as surpass themselves. Or have they already forgotten that? Basically, until they catch his sylph, the lesson isn't over. Let Lumens hope try. The protagonist's thoughtful manner of speech may be boorish, but he speaks the truth, so he should get in on the action too. The man motioned for Leo Flo to act as well. I wonder if he is as much of a wastrel as the fictional character Kyle. At this time, the children were trying with all their might to catch the little fairy, but they were not succeeding. Leo saw this and was getting ready to start helping. In order to accelerate like last time, he used the Phoenix Step. The classroom teacher was wondering if he might actually be the first true 3-division all-rounder. Chelsea wondered if this little thing was really fast. Carl didn't understand how they'd ever caught her. The hero in turn had already rushed towards her. He was completely focused and watched her movements intently. So in order to catch her, towered upwards. The distance was shortening and Silpha finally saw him. But thanks to her maneuverability, she was able to dodge. The hero smiled when it happened though. He knew what he had to do. So used his phoenix flame to bind him to the fairy. But suddenly, a guy appeared from nowhere and promptly shortened the distance and grabbed the creature. The one who did this turned out to be Duran. He used his lightning skill in order to accelerate. Along with him, his mentor Seijin arrived here as well. He is the classroom teacher of the class, 1-1 Lumen Academy. He was ranked second in performance and graduation evaluations, and said it seems they have a lot to learn from their class. Hard asked if he would get them instead. This man, in turn, was ranked number 1 in performance and alumni evaluations. Seijin was no longer comfortable with this prospect. Carl thought it was a brawl between the pillars of Lumen Academy. Leo asked who the pillars were, and the guy told him that those two had been working for the academy for 20 years. As far as he knew, Professor Ein, Yura, and Glenn really appreciated them. Nala was surprised, asking where he got that information. The guy talked about being a specialist in there in front of her. He made himself good. At this time, Seiyin said he doesn't know what Harid was thinking when he took over the loser class, but pretty soon he's going to find out. Well, So pulled out some kind of magic ball and said he was requesting a competition between classes 1, 1, and 1, 5. How about the oldest ball sports competition, Lumen Busters? The man stood up and told the man that he was a genius. Still, the best training is direct confrontation. Seijin was a little confused. She said that Class 1 would win. Harid noted that he didn't care. The most important thing was to let him continue the lesson for him. The conversationalist was angry and didn't understand how he could lose on a grade to such an idiot. And the students thought Professor Seiyin looked pathetic. So he turned around with his student, didn't leave. Harid, the class teacher, addressed his class and said he was giving them a rare opportunity to practice their skills. They would play a buster match with Class 1. There is also something else. If they lose, they will be eliminated. The disciples were wary when they heard this. Asked if he was being serious, it's only his first class. And yet there are 3 top students in the opposing class. The man explained that it was already their problem, so let them try. Besides, he doesn't understand what it is they have to worry about. The head of the course himself is with them. So he told Leo to recruit a 6-man team to play base runners with. The character realized that this man was happening now, essentially testing him. But he doesn't do it because he doesn't like him. At Lumen, many students lose their spirit after the first week, and it's no wonder. Professor Harid seems to want him to betray the losers of Class 1-5 self-confidence. That can only mean one thing, that in a base running match, a breakthrough is needed to lift the spirits of the entire class. In addition to Durand, Celia also represented the first class. Because of this, some members of class number 5 were wary. Hiro saw Chelsea's concerned face and asked why she was stoic. The girl thought that she hadn't heard of bastards before. He's from the outskirts. It is such a combat sport, a kind of tradition of the academy. Leo asked if it was an unusual ball game. Carl joined the conversation and argued that it was unusual. It's a very dangerous ball game. Suddenly, Celia turned to Chelsea and wondered what she was so scared about. Had she already accepted the inevitable defeat? She was angry about this and asked who was scared. Does she really think she's going to let herself lose to Zerdinger? The protagonist hugged his comrades for support. He said that they had nothing to fear. He would not lose. Celia declared that meant Leo would be there too. But she would still show him the fruits of her training. Along with her was another girl who wasn't going to lose. After a while, the preparations for the competition were completed. Seijin conducted the event and told the participants from each class to enter the arena. Then the hero turned to his companions and asked who was coming with him. Some didn't want to do it at all, but some were willing to do anything. Among them was Chelsea, who said how much she wanted to put these upstarts in their place. And then Elena came out with her, and she said since they're going to be expelled, she's channeling all her anger into winning. We still have to show the professor what they're made of. Nella and another guy tied were ready to fight as well. Lastly, the hero turned to Carl and said that he should already be aware that he was playing too. The guy didn't want that and asked why it was necessary, but Leo still made him do it. Then he informed the professor that Class 5 was ready. The man noted that it was good and immediately tossed the ball up. Everyone immediately turned their attention to him. That's how the game was started, and Leo and also Duran were fighting for it. In the end, one of the guys did get the upper hand in the confrontation. It turned out to be Duran, thanks to his lightning-fast speed. Seijin announced that everything was fine, Class 1-1 making the first move. When the hero landed, he asked Tide to explain the rules to him. The guy told me that the rules of this game are simpler than they may seem. You have to fill the ball with aura and throw it into the ring, touching it with your hands and feet. First one to gain a 2-point lead wins. Duran prepared to strike just in time. Carl was standing in defense, so he was ordered to get ready. After accumulating enough lightning aura, the guy made a strike. Because of this, the ball flew swiftly towards the protagonist. It landed right next to him, so he had to jump back. And thanks to that ricochet, the ball went straight into their goal. Leo had no choice but to give him only a glance. The audience cheered and called Durand Moira handsome, and those supporting the opposing team were a bit underwhelmed. It seemed to Tide that Professor Herod would really rule them all out. Suddenly, the hero asked how he could get a point. The interlocutor stated that there were 3 ways to do it. First, if the ball goes out of bounds during an opponent's throw. It is also possible to intercept the flying ball. It was only when he wanted to tell further that Nella shouted for someone to be careful. The guys turned their attention to their team. And so a ball that was launched by an opponent hit their participant Elena, causing the girl to fall to the ground. Celia did so. She didn't understand what the kids were whispering about. Do they have to fully concentrate on the match? Tide shouted out that you can't personally hit or block a player. Here's a third way to score a point: incapacitate a player with the ball. Attacking in turn can only be done with the ball. Hero picked up this ball and thanked for the clarification. Now it was finally his turn to attack. In the status of the match, it was just announced that Elena Layden was out of action, and there was 1 less participant in the Class 5. Herod along with Sajin continued to watch the match. The latter reflected on the fact that a team of players with the attribute of high destructiveness has the most potential in base runners. It is because of this that among the famous genera, Zerdinger's flame is the most powerful. So, the man told his rival that he had agreed though Celia Zerdinger in their class. He doesn't know what he wanted to accomplish here, but his class would be incredibly hard to beat. Harid only yawned. Sajin resented this. Had he really lost the ability to speak humanly? Then Harid turned to him and asked him if he remembered his first disciple, that child from the house of Zerdinger. The interlocutor noted that he certainly remembers how to forget her. This is the Empress of Bastaras. Harid smiled and said that he was in the 5th grade as the son of that very Empress. Sajin, it made him wary. At this time, the morale of the 5th grade class was severely depressed. They were saying they were doomed, and how they had only been taken to Lumen. Would it really be over so quickly? But suddenly they saw the fire that had been ignited. Celia noted that the boy seemed to have finally gotten his thoughts together. Leo was ready to charge this ball. He used his Phoenix Flame. Class number 1 was announced to be approaching, so let them be careful. And now the ball with great speed flew towards the opponent's ring. But Chloe appeared in his path at that very moment, using her ice attributes for protection. She smiled and said it's not that simple as long as she's on the gate. Before she could even finish that sentence, Leo appeared beside her. He pointed out that she probably hadn't said she couldn't score. In the next instant, the hero jumped up and decided to finish what he started. He channeled all his strength into his fist and hit him hard. Because of this, the barrier was immediately destroyed, and the ball flew rapidly ring, and Chloe did not even have time to react. Sajin was also surprised by his flair in battle is just incredible. Harid, for his part, this was leaving, so only smiled. The opposing team's spectators were now beginning to cheer. They were supporting Leo Flo in the 5th grade. It was clear to Sajin, so here was the real game. Passions were still running pretty equal. The attackers were applying all their power, and the defenders were trying to stop the balls. Due to different combinations, some contestants were eliminated. This was happening on both the 1st and 2nd team. Naturally, the advantage was still with the number 1 team thanks to Duran and his speed. He scored quite a few goals. And here he is once again sending it to the ring. But this time it was Carl who got in the way of the ball, even though it was traveling at a great speed. It was undoubtedly very difficult for him to catch it, but still the guy managed it. After he did that, though, he had no power left at all. He reported that the last of his mana had already been used up. So I left it up to Leo, who was left to his own devices. The girls took Carla off the field and thanked her for fighting to the end. The score on the scoreboard that moment was really equal, but the component still had the top 3 students. But the protagonist was already alone. Hero picked up the ball, preparing to attack once again. Everyone else, as well as his teammates, realized that they only had Leo left. The enemy had a big advantage. Chloe said that she may lack knowledge of magical theory, but she won't lose this game. That's why she used her magic to create ice clones. The protagonist crouched down, preparing to make an attack. His opponents were already prepared to defend themselves by applying their own attributes. But this time, Leo didn't use the Phoenix skill, but something else entirely that he had recently gotten to his arsenal. Literally in an instant, he disappeared from the sight of his enemies. They clearly didn't expect him to be that fast. Like Chloe, the hero recently decided to use clone tactics and created clones, thanks to which he ran through Celia with ease. She shouted that the guy intended to score, let Chloe prevent him from doing so. The girl thought he had used an illusion spell, but this one was petty. She needed to find out where the real one was, so she tried to find it thanks to her eyes, but what she saw just discouraged her. As a consequence, she simply froze, falling to her knees and unable to do anything. It wasn't until a few moments later that Chloe realized it was star magic. But that surprised her even more because how could a human use an elven spell? And while she was recovering, Leo scored and it was announced that Class 5 had won. Everyone was cheering and supporting Leo. After all, he was able to do it. The boys that only recently were dejected and happy that they would not be expelled. And this was happiness for them. They were already imagining how they were going on their way home. Seijin couldn't understand how his students lost. Harid assumed it was motivation. Now they were apparently in a very somber mood. The man realized the situation was dire. To cheer them up, he approached his students and asked if they were upset about the defeat. Since the match is over, regardless of the result, you have to bow down to your opponent. Still, they did a great job trying to pull out the win for Class 1-1. For the sake of those who cheered for friends and those who put themselves out in the arena, they must stand with their heads held high. His students rejoiced when they heard such motivation. Suddenly Harid called them losers and told them to come over and finish everything properly. Seijin was outraged, for the idiot had messed up everything again. At the end, it was announced that both classes did a great job. The one-on-one class did an excellent job of showcasing their talents. The Class 1-5, on the other hand, was able to hold on until the very end, putting their best foot forward. They made excellent use of their opportunities to get out of the situation. Seijin hopes that they will continue to work and compete with each other. So he asked the participants to shake hands, and they did. Celia noted that Chelsea had lasted longer than she thought. The girl noted that those were her words. She's as pouncy as that squid. Charles also noted to the prince with a smile on his face that victory was theirs. He didn't answer anything and looked at him coldly, which made the boy wary. Chloe was very upset at this time, so much so that tears came to her eyes. Then the main character came up to her and said it was awesome. He held out his hand and said that she could use a little more experience, and she would definitely become an outstanding sorceress. The girl looked at him and wondered if he was laughing at her, but his kind gaze and sweet smile said otherwise. Then Chloe thought about the fact that one day she was bound to alienate him, and now she just shook his hand. And it's been a whole month since that game. While Carl was eating, he asked the boys which club they wanted to join. Leo stated that he wasn't going to join. He was planning on founding it. This surprised the audience. Chelsea noted if he did start a club, she would definitely join it. But the interlocutor wondered what kind of club it was. The protagonist explained that it was a hero research society. Both of them didn't really understand what he meant. Then Leo said that he would like to investigate the truth about Kyle, the hero of the source. Carl was surprised because it was just a relic of the past, and a fake one at that. It seemed that no one would join the club if this was going to happen. Chelsea liked that she might be alone with Leo, so she shouted that she would definitely join this club. Suddenly the other kids started making a big fuss and said they were back. Carl also immediately went up and noticed that it was indeed today. The girl was interested and asked what was there. They all went to the window to see what had happened. At the same time, the guy was telling me that it was the day the 5th year returned from the dungeon they had cleared. Fragments of hero protocol are scattered throughout the world. From time to time, they pour out into the world and form a dungeon. These places are called hero dungeons. The seniors of Lumen Academy protect these dungeons by bringing back fragments of hero protocol. Their journeys can last anywhere from a week, or even up to a month. The protagonist was well aware that his mom had been through all of this too. Chelsea marveled. These are what the best students at Lumen are like. Carl tells me that the muscular guy from the east is Lee Jamia. The southerner next to him is named Toria Yang. And that pale boy in the hoodie looks like Yulta. But unfortunately, he doesn't see something. The highlight of the program. The hero wonders who it is. What if someone touched him and dragged him somewhere in an unknown direction? While this was going on, Carl was telling me that this was the Academy's top-ranked student council president, Reese. Next, he wanted to tell Leo something, but he saw that he was gone and didn't realize where he had gone. At this time, Celia was dragging a guy somewhere, and the guy wondering what happened was a bit much. The girl noted that she needed him to go somewhere with her. The boy asked where it was. The interviewee then told me that they were going into town. The president of the student council wants to meet him. Leo was surprised that the president was looking for him and didn't understand why. Celia said that he doesn't know how things work here, but he'd rather figure it out for himself when they arrive. After a little while, they found themselves at the appointed place, and the girl did not understand why he chose this particular place for the meeting. The guy didn't understand what she didn't like, because it smelled good here. Suddenly, the facial expression on the girl's face changed. It became very joyful. After immediately got up and ran up to the guy, calling him Big Brother. That was Reese Zerdinger from the night unit. The guy greeted Leo. He'd heard about him. He's the one who's an academic all-arounder. Together, they sat down at the table, and Reese asked if everyone was enjoying the treat. Leo confirmed it, but Celia was silent. So the brother inquired what was wrong. She informed him that she was trying this dish for the first time. So wary, cut off a small piece to try, and this food ended up being really good for her. Reese smiled and said he'd always wanted to take her to that restaurant. Next, he changed the subject and pointed out that Leo was his aunt's son after all. The boy asked if that was knowing his mom. He noted that he had seen her a couple of times when he was still a kid. She was also a pretty famous person in the academy. Leo was surprised, so much so that he asked about it again. The president confirmed it behind her back with many feats. For example, he openly stated that the desserts in the dorm dining hall were disgusting, gathered the students and stormed into the principal's office in protest. Celia couldn't believe that this aunt was standing then a famous event. Just like that, sweetly, they continued to chat for a while they ate. Meanwhile, the hero sat and pondered. As he thought, he was called the strongest in Lumen for a reason. It's only a matter of time before he becomes a hero. Suddenly, Reese offered to taste the desserts. The girl was very happy about it. Soon, he announced that he would go to pay up and let them step forward. But what happened next was something he hadn't expected at all. The fragment that was in his sinus began to glow for some reason. The guy looked at him. I couldn't understand why this was happening. A little more time passed, and there was a self-training session. Elena turned to the professor and said she had a question. Harid didn't want to answer that at all, but told her to ask her next stupid question after all. The girl questioned, why don't they elect a class head? In all the other classes they've been elected for a long time. Tide also confirmed it. The man thought about it for a moment and replied that he had simply forgotten. Next, he immediately told Leo to be him. Elena was outraged and asked why, and Tide asked the professor if the election was not by vote. Then the man threw quite a few papers on the table, and said that old age needs to sort those papers. Elena and the boy were already less than thrilled to be winding up as headmen. Suddenly, the students were addressed over the loudspeaker. It was announced that Hero World classes would be held today, so let the first-timers get ready and make their way to the appropriate auditorium. Hearing this information, Leo asked if they could go. The professor noted that this was what was expected from the headman, so he and the others headed down the hallway, where they saw an old acquaintance. It was Chloe, whom Carl greeted. He also noted that she looked rather tired. Seeing him, the girl asked if there was a potion to relieve fatigue. She'll buy whatever he has. Carl looked through his things and handed her 2 vials. That was all he had with him. The hero in turn pointed out that the school year had only recently started. So isn't she overstretching herself a little too much? Chloe just drank the contents of one of the vials. Then she turned the other way and walked away and said she was fine. This surprised Carla, since she already had a pomological theory bouncer. Chelsea came up and said that she had something to worry about. Once Leo pulls up current trends in magic, his magical theory will overwhelm her. Carl asked, but what was wrong with second place? The interlocutor thought he was really dumb. She's a canonical wizard after all. Chelsea are a battle mage after all, so a D on her non-power theory is unfortunate. But for a future employee of a magic tower, gaps in knowledge are unacceptable. Therefore, it is a matter of honor. The girl also didn't understand how this guy could be called a mage. He said that everything was ordinary, he was just a practitioner, and he's already quite successfully making a living at it. While they were arguing among themselves, Chloe didn't realize what was wrong. The academy director was minding his own business when he was told some information. From what he heard, he was surprised that the damaged protocol page was responsive. So, looking up from her interlocutor, he once again questioned this. Reese confirmed it. This page is so damaged that it shouldn't give any reaction at all. But even the director clearly observed it, and there were no relics around. He further wondered if there had been a reaction after those events. The guy objected and said she'd never been there once. The old man was taken by surprise and plunged into thought. Why, he replied that there was a need to sort it all out. The guy had recently returned, so he was probably tired and losing a great job. After these words, the director called Elena his assistant. She walked in and enthusiastically asked what was required of me. The director told her to take it to the other exhibits in the headwaters room. There is a joint class starting very soon, for first-timers. The assistant understood all this and left. Thus, the man was left alone with his thoughts. He thought that it happens that even such tiny fragments begin to react. Reactions are more likely to occur when the character mentioned in the protocol are nearby. It wasn't long before a joint session for first-year students finally kicked off in the Lumen Academy auditorium. Near the podium was Ariana Neer, the classroom teacher of Class 1-8 and first-year teacher. She asked the boys to be a little quieter, but they didn't hear her and continued to make noise, talking about their own things. The girl was pissed off by this, so she applied her energy. She said that if they cared about the hide, then let them slam their bread cutters shut or they couldn't wait to die. She took all her anger out on the first guy she saw, to whom she told him she could start with him. Always the underdogs, in her opinion. Disobeying. Soon she heard something that she really wanted to hear. It was silence, so the teacher could calm down. She didn't look angry now, but cheerfully thanked the children for their understanding. The guy she focused on first could exhale calmly. He'd seen it many times before, but each time he recoiled as if it were the first time. Leo wondered if it was a spiritualist. Even in his past life, they were hard to find. The professor noted that they will continue their first-year geography class. After the hero protocol came into their lives, there were reasons to create entire clan heroes. In order to open up the world of a character, a subject with a deep connection to that character is needed. That's why the world is easiest to open up to the descendants of such heroes. And Lumen Academy, which keeps the hero protocol in place, keeps in touch with the families of the heroes. Although there is certainly a political connection in this, of course. A teacher might say that this relationship is like a chest and a key. The main character was busy hearing all this. Elena walked into the classroom, and the teacher at the time asked if everyone now understood the importance of classes in the world of heroes. The children confirmed this, so Ariana stated that the hero classes are necessary because they help him learn more about the hero's world as well as the heroes themselves. In their senior year, they get to choose their favorite hero, whose power they want to inherit, and clear a page from his world. Elena at that moment brought that very fragment. The teacher picked it up and started telling me that it was a fragment of hero protocol. This is the exact same one that the 5th graders obtained for them in a recent mop-up mission. She slowly began to open that very box. So the kids were excited to see what they would see inside. But the woman suddenly backed her up and said that, before they experienced him. Would those in attendance like to share their thoughts on what kind of hero they would like to be? Celia was the first to raise her hand. She indicated that she would like to become a knight superior to all the previous generation of her family's heroes. It seemed to the instructor that this was a great goal. Chloe, in turn, said that she would like to write a book containing her personal spell. There were also many more people who talked about their goals. Carl was among them. He would want to support the hero in every way possible in the battle. Ariana praised that this student wants to be a pillar for the heroic world. That's great. Following the previous speaker, the protagonist also rose. He firmly stated that his goal was to get rid of Erebos completely. The professor was a little surprised to hear this information. She was confused. Carl was also confused, hearing the loud words. Actually, the same thing happened to the classroom teachers of several classes. The woman reported that this was an awesome goal, but quickly moved on to the next student. Then some guys started whispering behind Leo's back about whether his dreams were too big. The head of the course is still on a different level, though. Seijin asked his interlocutor what he thought of this goal. Harid was amazed it gave him goosebumps. This guy is the kind of guy who throws around simple words. The man began to reflect on the fact that it had been hundreds of years since Erebos had been broken into several pieces and sealed. And yet there had been instances of his resurrection, and even a single fragment had spawned disasters. Leo, on the other hand, says he wants to get rid of Erebos completely. Soon, Ariana suggested that we begin reading a fragment of the heroic record extracted from the dungeon. After that, each class should guess who the records are about, and then move on to a teaching sweep of the heroic world. She's going to run this one separately for contingencies. The professors, in turn, will be observing the class, so have them try not to freak out. The children thought the moment had finally arrived. This is really their first time touching hero protocol, and they were very nervous. Before things got started, the professor said to have the head teachers of each class step forward first. The head of the first class was Celia. The main character also came out, for he represented his class. The abbot as headman also promoted along with them, and Chen came out as well. When they came out, Ariana said that this time, 2 fragments of the protocol had been obtained at once, but only one of them would be used in class, of course. The second piece is a little too small, but they'll show them both so they know that those are found too. The instructor suggested that student Leo be the first to try to pick it up. The hero did, of course, and suddenly something started to happen. Some kind of golden energy began to spread through the audience. When that happened, it was announced that a hero protocol was being opened, but surprisingly no world or chapter was displayed, as if it had been classified or destroyed. Seijin and the faculty were horrified, wondering if the protocol was pouring out. The auditorium they were in gradually began to turn into a very different place. They had entered the very world and the very chapter, hero protocol, that had been classified. Appearing in another world, the children saw the corpses of some creatures. Because of this, the particularly impressionable girls got a shock. Harid said to make sure everyone stays alert. After all, this is a surgical dungeon. Suddenly, Seijin informed everyone that the walls of some fortress could be seen there. To the protagonist, these places were very familiar. It is the last line of defense and the last stronghold of hope in the age of Guardslan wall disasters. If it's that time, he remembers all the current words. He even uttered what was said a short time ago. And then a woman came along and called them truly idiotic. However, in spite of this, they will save the world. This woman turned out to be Lusinas, whom the protagonist finally met. He was very happy to see her again, a sweet, smiling face. It was only when he faced her that the world disappeared again, and the others moved into the auditorium. Chen grew up asking the professor what it was just now. He, in turn, became alert and shouted that the class was cancelled. He asked everyone to remain calm and leave the great hall immediately. Thus, the students left the auditorium whispering about what had happened, and the protagonist is immersed in memories. He realized that the protocol that was found in his hands was Kyle's that belonged to him. Harid only observed his musings. A little time passed, and Elena asked in horror if Leo had seen the Queen of Wisdom. Chelsea also chimed in that it was unbelievable, which meant that it was a fragment of the Lusinas' heroic protocol. Elena was indignant. If she were the head of the class, she would have seen her too. What a pity. But Carl countered that she couldn't care less. Then, on emotion, the girl started hitting him hard. Suddenly, the class teacher entered the room. He said that he had come here to punish the noisy ones, but they were in his class. They have a choice, self-preparation or exclusion, so let them choose. He then closed the door behind him, slamming it shut, and silence hung in the room. Leo pondered on why his hero protocol was so strange. Even the name of the world and the chapters were not displayed. The whole thing is amazing, as if someone deliberately destroyed his hero protocol. A hero protocol is an item that contains a piece of the hero's power. And if anyone doesn't want this hero to have a following, it's Erebos. After thinking about it, the guy decided he had to figure out why his protocol was split. Another month had passed since the incident. And now, there was a lesson in the magic division. Glenn was just talking about original or unique magic. That would be the task of their transfer exam. The students, of course, were not thrilled, so they whispered about it. And the professor went on to say that original magic reflects the very personality of a particular magician. In the age of activation formulas, animations are no longer so keen on originality. However, the original magic of this is a great ace up your sleeve when it comes to fighting. Star magic wielded by elves is in fact just a tiny fragment of the original magic. The only one who could use star magic was none other than Stargazer Luna. Chloe, in turn, remembered immediately the moment when star magic was used by Leo. The boy turned his attention to the book that lay beside the girl. It seemed to him that she exuded some strange and dark energy. Suddenly the girl turned her attention to him, after which you tried to hide the very book Leo was looking at. He, in turn, thought this book of magic. Soon the instructor announced that he was looking forward to the students' personal creations, and the class was over for the day. So everyone left the office, and with them Chloe. But on the way out, she was stopped by the main character, grabbed her arm and asked her to wait. The girl looked at him in surprise, not understanding what he wanted. The guy smiled at that moment and asked if she wanted to have lunch together. While he was saying this, he noticed the girl's briefcase. He realized that she had hidden the book on purpose. The interviewee pushed away his suggestions and said she didn't have time for that if she was going to defeat him in the upcoming exam. Then Carl came out of the study. He declared that for his all-too-rare dare to mark the place of the Ice Queen. The girl stated that she has lost to Leo before. But when it comes to formulas, she has to be the best. That's why she's absolutely going to win this time. Then the hero remarked that the hackles would probably be harsh on his part, his attitude towards her. The interlocutor confirmed. It nodded its head. So the guy holds out his hand and says, "That's good." He suggests good preparation. Chloe of the series shook his hand. Carl watched in fascination as they naturally, in his opinion, shook hands. After a little while, the heroes headed to the Tower of Heroes. He thought that this was where the forbidden archives of the Academy and Lumen should be located. If he found them, he'd find a clue to his missing hero protocol. As he walked, some of the girls whispered about him, talking about what he was doing here, and remarked that he was cute. Soon she met another man on the boy's path. It was fifth-year student Toria Yang. She reported that she had heard about him from Professor Glenn. Still, it was good to finally meet him. The guy also greeted her. The girl wondered what business could have brought a freshman to the hero's tower. Leo explained that he was here to have a word with the student council president. The interviewer understood and said if he chose the magic division, she would let him through. Leo explained that he didn't attend magic classes regularly. That made Toria smile. Which to this, as promised, she stepped back and gave him a way forward. The hero thanked her for that and went on his way. Suddenly, the girl turned to him again and hoped he would finally move into their unit before the end of the semester. Still, she wished she could say it outright. The guy only gave her one last smile and nodded, after which he continued on his way to the elevator, which had already descended. He pressed the button that should have moved him to the desired floor, but nothing happened. In the end, the guy didn't understand why it wasn't working. Then someone else appeared next to him and said he needed to put mana in to activate the buttons, just like that. This guy was also excited to meet Leo Flo. The hero, on the other hand, was not interested, but looked at him. It turned out to be another fifth-year student from Lee Jamia's night division. He said that the guy was probably that freshman who was also the head of the course. The hero bowed and greeted the older man. The boy wondered what had brought him to the important heroes. Leo said that he would like to have a word with the student council president. It seemed to Lee that this newcomer and the front man were not nervous at all. Still, coming to the student council house alone, that's bravery. The hero wanted to say that he didn't think of barging in here, but his interlocutor interrupted him and said that the night unit was just for him. Leo only smiled when he heard those words. What did they remind him of? By the time he reached the student council office, he was at his limit. Though he hadn't even gotten to the main task yet, so he plucked up his courage and knocked on the door. He told President Reese that it was Leo Flo and asked if he could come in. The president allowed him to do so, and the hero went inside. Reese wondered what he was doing here. The guy replied that he needed access to a forbidden archive. This makes the interlocutor wary. He knows that this guy is obviously not the type to joke around. But for the average student, there are only two ways to get there. The first is to have them sweep the hero dungeon. This is usually done to return the world protocol page to the source. Hearing this option, he inquired about the second method. The president smiled and said, speaking of the second way, let him join the student council and then he would know everything. After that conversation, a small amount of time passed. It was the day of the night unit selection exams. Carl was glad that it was the day of the selection exams for the night unit. There are so many kids here. You couldn't help but bring popcorn with you. Chelsea resented that Carl was a born bargainer. And Elena noted that he was. Even without the Lumen Academy, he definitely was. And people were out. While they were chatting, the hero looked out. And where is Chloe? She has not seen something. Suddenly everyone stirred, for soon there was to be a beginning. LDA announced that he was announcing the first fight, and in it, Howl Snape from Class 1 will meet. And also Leo Flo, so have the contestants come out. Carl turned his attention to the faculty member who was also here. So he ran up to Professor Saiyan. The man inquired what had happened. The guy turned on his sales pitch and offered popcorn and a drink. Mentor smiled, asking, do you really think he will take it? He'd better let Haridu offer it. Carl knew this was going to happen, so he prepared a plan. He nodded to Celia, and she had to do the intended. So the girl went up to the class teacher and started playing. She asked me to buy it for them because it looked delicious. The others also supported her to act out the skit. The man realized that, unfortunately, he couldn't get away with it. So he said he would buy everyone what they wanted. The hero, in turn, rejoiced that he was lucky enough to be the first to shoot back. His opponent, Hal, noted, it seems he's underestimated here. Which means the guy is going to regret it. He's a hereditary hero of the Snape family. The rules of the night unit selection trial stated that if a man won 5 duels, he would pass. The students were whispering about who knows what level of martial skills their headman had. It was said that he was a generalist. It was believed that there was still a difference between him and a single unit follower. In addition, Howl is considered the third strongest in Class 1 after Celia and Durand. Howl thought Leo was an arrogant jerk who was constantly being embroidered by Celia. The professor announced that the winner would be the one who would put his opponent out of action. So let them treat this duel as a real battle. The guy wasn't interested in the battle at that moment, for he felt something strange. Some strange dark energy that he had felt recently came from the academy. It gradually seeped in, filling the space inside. Chloe Miller was inside this room at the time. She was trying hard to create something on her, nothing was working, and it was making her angry. It's horrible that it's not working out with her current skill level. She won't be able to create unique magic. This made the girl set aside the book she was working with. But in any case, Chloe was not going to lose in the practical exam. She turned her attention back to the stack of books that lay on the table. Among them was one from which a strange dark energy was thinning out. The girl wondered if it would be enough for her victory. She really wanted to win. Leo's comprehension was completely riveted on the dark energy. His opponent saw that the guy had let his guard down a bit and attacked him for being careless. He thought Leo was already caught, but the hero easily dodged his spear. Howl in turn didn't stop and used the snake spear skill. after which his weapon rapidly shortened the distance and had to attack the guy's chest. In order to block it, the hero simply put his arm out and grabbed it in front of him. The interlocutor just couldn't believe what he saw, what kind of strength he had. Leo decided he needed action as well, so he immediately pulled the spear he held in his hands and moved his opponent out of the way. Because of this action, he shortened his distance with him and punched him in the face quite hard, causing Howl's body to fly several dozen meters away. After the incident, the hero smiled and asked if he was carefree now. Although his blow was very strong, the enemy was not incapacitated. He stepped up and used his generic power. Speaking of the one not building himself up to be omnipotent, the game is just beginning. This skill is called Poison Mist. He realized that Leo didn't have the ability to control aura after all. The protagonist saw the poison aura. It seemed interesting to him. Therefore, he applied the Phoenix Flame immediately. It was done in order to block the poisonous mist with its power. What she saw only made Hall chuckle, for such an attack could only be blocked so far by Celia's flames. The hero instantly increased his strength and said that the one probably didn't understand something. His power completely blocked the poisonous fog, leaving behind only echoes of energy. The audience was engrossed in the action, gobbling up Carl's popcorn. Durand, too, was watching closely, and his chief rival. Chelsea was fascinated by what was happening, but Celia was wary for some reason. And it was because she didn't understand when Leo had time to build up the power of his fiery aura. Howl couldn't believe what he was seeing. After all, the flames that had been applied to him were not at all inferior to Celia's level. This scoundrel who pretends to be a universalist is capable of even that, and it's horrible. So he realized the situation was bad. So he said he was actually going to use it against Celia, but who knew that one would have to spend it on Leo Flo? Speaking of which, the guy changed another skill called Snake Shackles. This attack the aura of the protagonist could not block. Therefore, the technique applied would see the snakes enveloped his body. Lep thought that this attack was pretty good. Snape was more interested in Celia's reaction to what he had done. He had specially prepared this technique to catch her flame. While pondering this, he suddenly saw the girl pointing back at him. At that moment, his technique that had enveloped the guy's body began to gradually evaporate. And after a few more moments, it was completely destroyed. Howl couldn't believe it. It was simply impossible. Enraged, he couldn't contain himself and rushed to attack again. The protagonist was prepared for this turn of events. He also drew his weapon, thanks to which he defended himself and threw the enemy's spear aside. He said he would advise against distractions while his flame is still talking. His blade was already near his opponent's neck, and that could only mean one thing, that Leo Flo had won. Everyone started cheering after his win. But the biggest Chelsea fan was happiest of all. Carl was also happy about the win. Howl wondered if this guy was so skillful even in practice. No wonder he doesn't perform for Celia. Suddenly, he heard a girl's voice asking if he was impressed, but it was really cool. The interlocutor stammered. He couldn't believe Celia would praise him. Soon, the professor called for the following participants. From Class 5, the representative would be Elena Layden. The girl came out. She was curious who would fight against her. The professor dumbfounded her with the representative of Class 10, Chen Xia. Elena was shocked when she heard that name. She didn't understand why exactly she was pitted against a top student. But there could be no appeal here, and soon the two opponents were lined up in front of each other. Before the battle, Chen had only asked to be a little gentler with her. Her opponent also asked her to do so. Eventually, a few moments later, the start of the battle was announced. The Oriental representative immediately applied her martial aura with a water style. Elena, in turn, drew her weapon and used her battle aura as well, after which she rushed into the attack in order to shorten the distance between them. The protagonist was watching carefully, and even then he realized everything. That the girl would be hurt by this outburst. In the end, that's what happened when she encountered her enemy's defense technique. Because of this barrier, she was thrown aside at a tremendous speed. Her condition was so bad that she could no longer continue the battle. Therefore, Chen Xia was declared the winner of this battle. Elena was pretty much her own anyway. She at least didn't care to come out against her. The protagonist noticed that the selection wasn't the fairest initially, but if she had focused, she would have done even better. Next up for the battle from class number 1 was Celia. Her rivals were also first-class representative Duran Moira. The girl smiled at the guy and said that he would definitely be fun to be with. He didn't say anything back, but was completely focused at that moment. Carl took a keen interest in what was happening. Leo noted that this match really promises to be exciting, and his interlocutor wanted them to start already. Of course, the audience also froze in anticipation of what was happening as well. These two are about to see who's the best knight in the number 1 class. Both of them immediately used their battle aura, but Duran decided to act first. So thanks to his lightning aura, he swiftly shortened the distance and attacked the girl. But she was able to handle the defense quite skillfully. Tide was amazed at what was happening. That must be the skills of top students. Watching the exciting fight, Carl wondered who to leave Leo for. After thinking it over for a bit, the guy said, from what he could see, Celia would win. Then his interlocutor called him a heartless guy. The protagonist liked the girl's look a lot. He figured she must have a plan brewing to turn the situation in her favor. Using the aura lightning enhancement, Duran once again rushed forward. This attack was too fast, making it quite hard for Celia to dodge. Even so, she managed it and continued to attack as well. For her next attack, she raised her weapon upward, applying phoenix flames. She also used a skill that was a barrier. The audience was amazed, because this was clearly not a joke anymore. The main character called the girl a smart girl, and after all, she knows how to turn on her head when she needs to. Carl didn't understand why he said that, so he asked what was going on. Leo told her that the training ground for first years was rather small. Celia realized that, and that there was no point in trying to keep up with Duran. So she used the size of the gym to her advantage. Inside this flaming barrier, the guy can no longer run around like he used to, and the heat inside also restricts a strong view. Celia was already good, but now she's even cooler. Duran concentrated on the fact that he was very hot and couldn't see anything. His opponent took advantage of this, and was at his back in an instant. But thanks to his skills as well as his instincts, the guy still sensed her presence. That's why he decided to counterattack by applying his strength. But surprisingly for him, Celia grabbed the blade he was trying to hit her with. Afterward, she smiled and said he was finally caught. And what happened next was something that no one could have expected. The girl swung her head and hit the guy hard on his head. Thanks to this blow, Duran was rendered unconscious, and thus incapacitated. The referee has therefore declared Celia Zerdinger the winner. The audience rejoiced that the girl had won. She informed her opponent that he should work on his physical strength, after which she extended a friendly hand to him. Duran shook her off and stood up. Some people thought they were a very cute couple, and even decided to capture them on camera. Hero noted that Celia's training has paid off. The interlocutor also confirmed this. Suddenly, the class teacher appeared right behind them, noting that the girl had indeed won. Before he left, he thanked the course headman for his comment. The boys wondered how long he'd been eavesdropping on them. And then came the moment of the end of the practical examination for the night unit. Celia Zerdinger had 4 victories and 1 defeat. Duran Moira distinguished himself with exactly the same result. But that wasn't all because Chen Xia had the same result. Leo Flo, on the other hand, was the king. He had 5 wins and 0 losses. A week after the incident, a written or mystical exam happened. The class teacher praised his boys. He hoped they had done their best, and none of them would be expelled. Some of them were even thinking about dropping out themselves before they got kicked out. When the man left the office, Elena was furious about the expulsion. And while she was arguing, the guys were trying to get answers from Chelsea. She couldn't say no, so she agreed. When the guys started arguing over who would get the answer first, a girl came up to Leo and asked how the test went. He hesitated for a moment and said he thought it was good. Nella wondered if the fatigue that always keeps everything under control and such a face could be. Leo asked in surprise what she was talking about. She smiled and said that if something hurt, she would heal it with her magic. Carl joined the conversation when he heard this one. He reported that his back was aching a lot, as well as his shoulders, so he wanted her to help him too. Chelsea came up to him then and immediately slapped him on the back. She asked him how he was doing, if it didn't hurt anymore, and after the beating, she smiled and asked, "Leo, how was the practical draft class?" Tide says he rarely shows up for practice sessions. The character told this because of the fact that he practices where no one can see him. The interviewee noted that this is what he's all about. How does he think he will be ranked at the selection trials in the drafting unit? The guy's question made him smile. He stated which other wound he was attending. The highest, of course. After a little while, the day of the selection exams in the recruitment unit arrived. The host welcomed everyone present, and the day finally arrived. The biggest event of the first semester for the freshman summon race. Have everyone get comfortable. He's Renua Tess from the 3rd-year draft unit. Celia asked in surprise if this was serious and there was an exam. Then her brother told her that summon races are a real tradition for the recruitment division, and they're super popular. Plus, it's the highlight of the selection test program, everyone loves it. At such a large-scale event, Carl again decided to make some money and sold Coke and popcorn, and those present were eagerly buying it all from him. Tide reported that all the noise was throwing off his mood. The others also turned their attention upwards. It annoyed them greatly. The protagonist in turn was completely calm. He was being scrutinized by Chloe, who was also scheduled to speak. Chen and Walden Tyden were also present. Elsa reported hearing Leo had shown outstanding skills at the tryouts for the night unit. So I wonder if he was even drafted by a qualifier in the draft department. The boy answered firmly and confidently that he had been preparing. But the girl had never once seen him in practical training. Does he really look down on the draft unit? The other students were also angry. They found it humiliating. So they stated that if they were lazy, just let them go to another department. It's true. They're not even sure now that he was contracting in common with anyone. Tide tried to calm them down, asking why this one wasn't so angry. But those guys didn't settle down. They asked me not to cover for him just because he's a classmate. He's defaming the honor of the entire draft board. Hey, what's going on? Chen noted that the atmosphere is already heating up. And it hadn't even gotten to the start of the qualifiers yet. Seng Lu from the eastern part of the continent told the girl that she had also distinguished herself in the night division after all. But it turns out that the recruitment department had been neglected. The girl was a little confused when she heard that, and Walden reported that it was too noisy. Everyone immediately turned their attention to him. The guy stated that if they were going to argue and measure the length of summon contracts, let them do it away from him. Seng Liu was angry about this, and he inquired what this Walden was saying. The interlocutor repeated. He said he is annoyed by those who consider a longer summon contract as a great achievement. Then Sen wondered if he felt ashamed too. He had to keep his nose out of practice. Walden explained that he didn't need to practice the basics at all. He wasn't a dummy who couldn't even handle a griffin. The interlocutor got so angry that he couldn't help himself and tried to hit him. But that didn't happen. He was stopped by the main character. He explained that if they fought at sectionals, they wouldn't get a simple warning. They'd be called into question. The bully calmed down a bit then, but he was still angry. It seemed to Tide that their yearlings from the draft division were in a bad mood. Leo wondered why that would be. The interlocutor said that hazing is quite serious in the conscription unit. He and Chen Xia made it to the top while not being the representatives of just their division. And now, the second years are taking out their frustration on them. On top of that, their rare attendance. The protagonist saw that these words were true. Their behavior might have seemed dismissive to them, though he wasn't slacking off at all. Seng Liu was being watched by some hooded man. He noted that it is finally about to start. The guy himself was very angry at those arrogant bastards, but pretty soon they will see everything in the exam. It will wipe them all out. Before the contest was to begin, the announcer asked to be allowed to explain the rules. First-year applicants to the summoning unit may only use summoning in these tests. They are forbidden to use magic or aura, even if available. Their task is quite simple to tame these griffins, after which it is necessary to cross Summon Island, and then circle the Silent Lake and return. I wonder who will be the star qualifier in the draft division. It turns out that's not what they're gonna find out right now. The main character was completely calm before starting. The others, on the other hand, were wary, and some were even angry. Yura stated for the newcomers to leave the panic behind. Let them do what they practiced. And those who can't stand the pressure back may not come back. The students then realized that they were not allowed to be nervous and were already starting to shake with fear. Soon the professor reported, "With you they prepared." And so they were given the go-ahead to start. A couple of guys, thinking something strange, they looked at each other. It was after the start that most of the students rushed forward to fulfill the norm. But here were some standing still and using their magic for some reason. Surprisingly for everyone, that was the plan, as they channeled that magic towards Leo as well as Walden. The announcer pointed out that something strange was going on. The students in the draft division seem to have planned everything in advance, and are clearly targeting Leo Flo, the head of the class, and Walter, the top student from the south. Tide noticed that the headman was being attacked and wanted to help him, but the hero told him to worry about himself. It's an exam after all. Then the interlocutors apologized and continued taming the griffin. The audience was outraged by what they saw, and it's very dirty. The draft board is full of subhumans. Even if they fight fair, they resort to dirty methods. The protagonist, for his part, knew that outrage would descend upon them. But to be collectively poisoned like this, it's just awful. The announcer said that the 5th grade fans are pretty loud on this kind of strategic move. It ended up happening just as he said it would. Walden instantly canceled their summoning magic. After which, this guy leisurely headed towards the griffin he was about to ride. And when he did, he turned to old age. It sounds like he's having difficulties. Maybe he needs help. But Leo in turn countered that he didn't need any help. He could handle it himself. Thus, without further ado, Walden flew away on his griffin. One female viewer felt strongly about Leo. It was Chelsea who didn't know what to do. Yura reflected on the fact that the divisions between her students were much deeper than she had realized. Some open-minded ones rallied against others. Leo, for his part, hadn't even studied spirits, only taming. So it would be hard for him to counter. But suddenly she saw something she clearly wasn't expecting. The spirits started circling around the guy, and he spoke in their language. He asked these little creatures to get rid of the sharks and clear the way. The teacher just couldn't believe it. It's the language of spirits, he can't be able to speak it as well. How he was able to study it, she didn't understand. That made the woman smile, and she thought she owed it to herself to get him in the draft unit. At this time, the students in heaven laughed that this is how old age should be. He's not the best student in the South, and he's also the head of the course. It was clear from the beginning who was going to get the last place. They also asked Elsa if she liked it. The girl reported that it wasn't. She didn't like it. She could defeat Leo Flo and Walden Tyden without it. The interlocutor was surprised at this statement, and Elsa asked if they even realized what people would think of the draft division. Sen replied that he didn't care at all. The way they humiliated those devices was worth it. But the interviewee said she is the future, advising you to think before you do anything. It's that kind of pissed-off look on the guy's face that made the wretch so crazy with her pride. No big deal, though. He'll come in second, and that's fine. He's the best at controlling flying summons since Elsa. Suddenly the guy was shouted to beware, for there was danger behind him. It turned out to be Chen, who shortened the distance rather quickly. She was asked what this strange stance was for a rider. Luke was really surprised. She's so fast, though she doesn't even use spirit energy to enhance her own summoner. So the guy suggested the others to get rid of her altogether. One of the girls immediately applied her fortitude and decided to have her taste it. With her spirit, she channeled a powerful stream of wind into the girl's trail. But Chen used a rather nifty trick to dodge it. She literally flipped her griffin upside down and dodged like that. Her opponent who attacked was surprised. A few moments later, the shadow counter-attacked, leaping on top of her. Eventually, this girl was knocked out of her being. And as she flew down, she said it wasn't fair. But Chen wondered why she thought so. It wasn't like she had used any aura after all. After that, she once again decided to forge ahead and channeled her griffin. So soon met up with Lu and greeted him. Then the guy declared that it was for nothing that she tired in his way. Hearing this, the interlocutor said that it was true. She might not have an advantage in aerial combat, but she wouldn't be the only one to oppose him. Liu was surprised and asked what she was saying. The girl said that his antics have angered quite a few people. Just as she said that, the guy heard a massive explosion go off behind him. It seemed to Chen that Walden was the kind of person who always paid in the same coin. Now the guy was having fun destroying his enemies. He was thanking the trash for the ride. That's why now let them receive his thanks for it. The guys who were attacked decided to scatter so they could take less damage. But in any case, their birds were massively attacked, so some were immediately defeated. At this time, the announcer was talking about Leo Flo, who is the head of the first year. He is a very famous person in the academy, who is tagging right into the divisions. But did the draft really prove to be Leo's Achilles' heel? Freed from the spirit's magic, the guy headed to his summoner and found that his wing was wounded. He was pissed that a future hero would resort to sneaky tricks like this. Now what was left for the guy to do was here's the action to tame the creature. The announcer was surprised that the headman was trying to tame this aggressive beast. Climbing a divided griffin is extremely reckless. Celia, watching all this, she wondered what Leo was doing. Why make such sacrifices? Reese snickered. Maybe he had some kind of plan. The protagonist had a hard enough time dealing with the bird. The creature was constantly stealing and eating for more lacked contact with anyone. The guy said he understood his feelings perfectly well, but he had to obey him too. So coldly ordered him to obey. The hero felt all that coldness and power the guy wielded, so wary. That was the reason he was able to obey him, so he was no longer enraged. After taming it, the hero first went to the wing and retrieved the shard that injured the creature from there. Only after that did he gape at him for continuing to fight after all. The griffin let out a cry of its own and tried to rise up. The announcer told everyone that it turned out Leo's griffin had a wounded wing. Though he was able to ride the beast on, the situation was clearly not on his side. At this rate, he could only come in last. The guy replied to his summoner that it would certainly hurt, but he could handle it. Then he believed by the power that was given to him by the contract to make his spirit appear. And then a baby phoenix appeared right in front of him. The fiery energy of that spirit immediately covered the griffin's body. He howled because of the pain, for this fire was burning his body and regenerating along with it. Seeing this, Celia was surprised. She didn't realize what kind of flame it was. At first, the academy president thought it was Zerdinger's flame, but quite soon realized that it was not an aura flame at all, but didn't realize what it was then. The students attacked by Walden still continued on their way. Their birds were badly injured, so they're already lagging behind. But it was good to see that at least the last mini would come. Suddenly, right at their backs, they saw a flash of some sort. It was the main character together, with his griffin who flew very fast. Leo's finally figured it out now, so he wanted them to speed up even more. But as he approached the front, he sensed something strange. Ahead of him, he saw some guy sitting on an unknown creature. This surprised Leo greatly, for he realized it was a Fafnir creature. A few minutes before, something interesting happened. Elsa stated for Walden to stop doing that. She's not going to give him first place after all. The guy saw her and immediately used his spirit magic. The girl realized what was about to happen, so she was able to dodge the explosion at the last moment. She realized that it was an explosive attack using spirits of fire as well as air. This combination is quite deadly. This is not a level that is achieved simply with spirit kinship. Still, she couldn't even think Walden was versed in magic either. And yet so easily, she's not going to give up. Because the power of the attack doesn't matter, as long as you can dodge it, and she did it easily. Then the guy decided to change his approach to his attack a bit. He said that now they would see how she would come back from this. And on the girl flew ice magic mixed with fairy magic. Elsa realized that it was necessary to defend herself, so commanded her bird to do so. As a consequence, the griffin erupted fire from its mouth. Because of this, the ice attack was neutralized. Walden realized that it was a strengthening call. The announcer noted that this fight was simply delightful. The challenger Elsa blocked Walden's attack by using spirit reinforcement on 3 summons. And while they were chatting, Chenxia took advantage of her opponent's busyness and surged forward. She thanked them for this opportunity, but it was impossible to get far away from the girl, for she soon felt something grab her by the neck. It turned out that this stopping power was applied by Elsa. She didn't want this girl to get ahead. After a few more moments, Chen saw a flash of flame in front of her, which marked the explosion. In the end, the girl had no choice but to jump off her beast, as the explosion would destroy it and her. Also in the air, she was still able to break the force that was restraining her. And even surprisingly, she managed to get back to her griffin in one piece. The girl stated that draft class tops are no joke after all. Suddenly they all saw something strange right above them. It turned out to be Liu, who had swapped his griffin for another creature. The children marveled. It's a black one, right? The guy himself was very angry and was speeding away. He said he was going to kill those bastards. Approaching him, Chen pointed out that it was a violation of the rules to use a non-griffin race. But the guy shouted she covered her mouth. Did she really think he cared? They all call themselves great talents, but let them get out. Read his roads. Those present marveled that this dumbass was able to make a contract with a wyvern. But someone said that it was not a black wyvern, but some kind of special wyvern. Suddenly, at my place of planting, they didn't hear another griffin screaming and turned their attention there. It turned out that the main character was rapidly approaching them. People could believe his eyes. He wondered how he'd gotten there in time. It didn't matter, he was going to kill him. Leo's voice at that moment was definitely not the same as it always was, which made those present a little wary. And the hero wondered where this guy got this lizard. Liu smiled and asked if he was envious. It was because of his strength. He subdued him with his summoning skills. If he's jealous, let him say so. Leo couldn't tell if this guy believed this summon was a summon. It was clearly not him, but a Fafnir. This creature is the very monster used by the Tartaros magic, one of the ones they destroyed by desperation. But how this kid was able to tame it is beyond comprehension. While the protagonist was pondering, the opponent ordered the wyvern to attack, and it did. The deadly beam headed towards the protagonist, and the rest of him was unable to dodge it. But he ended up targeting Chen's griffin and herself with a direct hit. Even though the girls were yelling for her to dodge, she realized it was too late. That's why, for her own defense, she tried to use the barrier that initially held back this attack. But in the end of such a tremendous onslaught, the girl could not withstand, her defense fell. Consequently, she, along with her griffin, was incapacitated and was falling down. Leo noticed what had happened, so he decided to act. He quickly shortened his distance with the girl and picked her up in his arms. The boy realized that she was unconscious. She had to be saved first. So he informed the others that he was about to bring her down to earth, and immediately set out to carry out his plan. Liu was circling in the air with his pet at this time. He enjoyed it. That's what it was like to look down on the pathetic humans. He liked it a lot. So he did not stop and decided to attack further. The announcer stated that the competitors had gone off the track and were now out of sight. Too much had happened in a short period of time. Contestant Seng Lu called for black and back and attacked the race leaders. That's all the announcer had time to say before he was hit by Yura. She called the guy an idiot. Doesn't think there's any point in continuing to orate now. She then walked up to the microphone and said, "This is the summoning unit. All teachers as well as assistants immediately need to prepare flying summons. The race will be suspended." Several faculty members came in to see her. They asked what was going on. The woman noted that Sen Lu seemed to have contracted a demonic beast instead of an ordinary summon. The faculty just couldn't believe it. And Yura reports that the influence of the beast will soon drive him crazy. But the professor cannot understand how the student could fix the demonic beast himself. Then, Harad entered the room. He said that the previous speakers had in mind whether someone could have helped him in this. The girl was not sure, but such a possibility could not be ruled out. The man said he understood everything. Yura will lead the summoning unit to capture Seng Lu and destroy the demonic monster. The other professors will split up and protect the students. Everyone agreed to this, and Harad also asked Seijen to go with him, to which he agreed. That's why I had them all on the road soon. The protagonist, for his part, was finally able to get down. He gently placed Chen's body on the ground. Following him, Walden also came down as well, along with Elsa. Suddenly, the guy looked up and said, "With Sen Lu flying over here." The opponent also landed behind them and asked if he couldn't avoid, you thought. In that case, they should have hidden. They were stuck in an open field. The protagonist informed him that he had no intention of running. By the way, he wished he could tell him that the one in command wasn't Samono. Liu laughed at those words. He asked if he thought that he, as a professional and student in the recruitment unit, wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Leo interrupted him and said that it was a demonic beast called a Fafnir. The interlocutor became a little wary upon hearing this information. The others also found her amazing. The protagonist walked forward straight towards him and remembered things that happened in his previous life. There used to be a huge number of these creatures, and he fought them all. That's why he's informed me now that he's going to destroy this vile monster. When Liu heard that, he just started laughing even harder. It seemed to Elsa that that guy had already really lost his mind. He probably did, because he asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Does he really think he's a weakling even after what happened? Liu got angry about this and ordered the creature to attack again. Suddenly, a huge stone hand from the ground appeared directly in the path of the fire beam. It turned out that it was Walden who had used the stone golem for defense. He was in agreement on the left. It was necessary to destroy this vile creature. Liu didn't expect to see a magical golem creation technique here. Elsa's point was that there's no point in making a fool of herself, so she'll help too. Thus informed that they needed to start by somehow separating the idiot from the monster. Walden pointed out that the golem was about to fall apart, so have them ready. Elsa resented him. He can't do anything normal at all. The hero only smiled. Liu shouted that these golems were no hindrance to him. After all, they had seen how cool his summon was. And after destroying the stone creature, I wondered where those little rats were. The first person he saw was Elsa, who had used her containment magic. The guy didn't resent it because they also dared to resist him. He decided to counterattack and ordered his monster to do so. But Walden had it all figured out. He used his spirit magic, and several explosions happened right at the Fafnir's head. Walden himself stated that the bolo acted now. While Liu was a bit confused, the hero swiftly shortened the distance and was beside him, after which he delivered a crushing kick to the head. Leo lands a glancing blow to the side of Monster's head. Something started happening to the body of the guy who confronted them. His voice changed and said they had done a good job trying to take out the boy. But that was the end of it with these underdogs. Elsa was horrified to see where Leo had rushed off to on his own. The new rival asks the guy if he's scared he's a hero candidate. Leo in turn was well aware that it was a Tartaros mage controlling the beast. He wondered where his main body was. It couldn't be far away. The interlocutor was surprised that the guy knows who he really is, which is quite interesting. Yet he remains so calm in such a situation. He's the epitome of the perfect hero. In that case, it would be better to finish him off right now. In order to do so, this man used his strength and made a strong strike, thanks to which the protagonist did not stay in the air and immediately began to fall. But he knew what to do in such a situation, so he didn't get confused, and he summoned his fighting spirit Fiora. In his past life, the protagonist was good at everything, but never excelled at anything in particular. For example, Dweno as well as Arron were better at wielding aura than him. Luna, for her part, made excellent use of magic, and in the draft it was Lusinas who performed the best. That's why Leo took a slightly different path. And now he had applied the ability fusion skill along with his summon. This merged aura along with magic with spiritual power, as well as spiritual power with magic. And so Fiora transformed. Now she looked more like a phoenix to the guy. The protagonist saw the Fafnir reacting to the aura of the phoenix, which is the most hostile of the monster. The mage marveled at the phoenix contracts right in front of him. Leo said that if he answered where he got that Fafnir, it would answer his question. But the enemy, he objected. He knows too much about the Age of Despair. He can't let him go alive. The guy saw that he was about to be attacked, so he got ready and told his summoner to do the same. For protection, he decided to use the secret art of the Zerdingers. And it was by him that the Phoenix Breath, the Flominance technique Celia used. The enemy monster spewed its dark power and it was countered by a secret technique. Still now, it was hard for the protagonist to defend himself against this strong enemy. The wizard saw the weakness and decided it was time to call it a day. But suddenly the control over the body of this creature and also the guy started to weaken. So the wizard could not understand what was happening. Seeing this, the hero assumed that the main body of his enemy, someone attacked his spiritual connection, was weakening. That's why he ordered his summon to act even stronger now. So because of this, his strength increased and completely suppressed his enemy. The wizard couldn't realize that this boy was able to defeat him as well as the Fafnir. But still, the flying monster's body was destroyed, and there was an instantaneous explosion. After what happened, Leo praised Fiora for doing a great job, and now she can go back. As soon as he mentioned it, his pet turned into a small bird. Eventually the guy realized he did it for nothing, and began to plummet downward as if it were a stone. A little earlier the Wizard of Tartarus had been sitting in place, and was saying that enough fighting was enough. It was time to finish with this young hero. But suddenly he turned his attention to the side and saw a strange magic there. This force was directed directly towards him. Nado couldn't figure out who did it. It turned out that this magic had been applied by Sejin, and Harid stated that now the question to this by the greatness of the monsters of Tartaros. The wizard realized what had happened. It turned out the Pillars of Lumen had come to see him. He tried with all his might to break free of their restraining spell, and in the end reported that much to their regret, will have to postpone their procedure until better times. After that, some dark entity appeared over him and devoured his body, and in the end, there was no trace of that wizard left. Sejin asked his partner if he had missed it. Harid pointed out he seemed to be ready for it. After that, the man channeled his energy into the remnants, and together they came to the conclusion that it was no longer safe in Lumen. The protagonist at this time continued to fly downward. He hugged Fiora and told her to go back to her spirit world. Suddenly the boy heard a familiar voice. He was grabbed by a flying creature to keep him from falling down. Leo saw that his savior was Yura. She was very glad they had gotten there in time. There were corpses of creatures scattered in some strange place, as well as dark magic everywhere. The hooded man stated that it was very shameful. He was overcome by a regular student. The wounded mage stated that he definitely couldn't be called ordinary, because he managed to get a contract with the Phoenix. That surprised my companion a little, but even more the lad found it that moreover he recognized the Fafnir at once. It made the interlocutor seem to get more and more interesting. Some time passed after the incident, and the hero was walking down the corridor of the academy. He reflected on the selection from the draft unit, his inevitable cancellation. Unfortunately, Zeliu passed away, and this incident made the newcomers feel even more acutely how dangerous the dungeon was. Many were curious as to what contract and beast had driven him insane, but all four witnesses, including the protagonist, decided to keep silent about what happened. Of course, this did not happen without Professor Yura's instructions. Now it was the day of the Magic Division practical exam. Chelsea, as well as Carl, were surprised to see their friend. Chloe was very tired looking, so they asked if she had not slept at night again, because she did not look well. The girl ignored them and went to her seat. Glenn turned his attention to her. It turns out that the final candidate has finally arrived, so he and the boys move on to the main thing. The man believes that each of them has put maximum effort into creating original charms that reflect their individuality, and since it would be a pity to enjoy such a spectacle alone, he invited 3 people to share the pleasure with him. All 3 graduated with a successful Lumen 3 years ago as part of the Magic Division. The first is a girl named Rilda Fendi. Following her is Aidman Slack, and at the conclusion of this trio comes Sheen Hughes. But today, they are their judges who will be giving out grades. All 3, as well as his students, greeted each other. Carl had such a flair for assessment pants they wouldn't be stingy after all. Leo hesitated a bit and asked if he really thought so. And the first to be invited was Elena Layden to step forward. The girl went out of her mind in his anticipation of what she would demonstrate. The first thing she did was greet the older woman and decided to play up her cuteness. She introduced herself and said she was honored to meet them. Carl was delighted with his performance. Eventually, the girl demonstrated the spell she had decided to show off. Her attribute is light. Rilda was interested, asking if she had her own personal attribute of mana. Then Elena reported that if you add the flame flower logical formula to that, you get something interesting, and the result is some pretty powerful heat magic. And the girl demonstrated it. Shin watched with admiration at what was happening, after which she asked if it was any different from the laser-type magic that already existed. The girl got a little confused, and that's when the judges figured it out. Along with what they saw, they began to make their assessments, and handed the sheet with them to the professor. In the end, the man announced that Elena's result was S. The next candidate was invited, but the kids were whispering that she was given low scores. The next contestant was expected to have the same ball, and the girl following her got the same grade. Carl, on the other hand, stood out a bit and got a B+ grade, but Chelsea outscored him and got an A grade. Together, the two of them, and rejoiced that they were able to get almost bouncers. Shin reflected that things were going pretty well, but she was a little bored. Rilda was also pondering about it. Professor Glenn had said that there would be some extraordinary contenders this year. But so far, everything was boring. Edamon turned his attention to who they had left. Anyway, it seemed to him that there were regulars and middles left. That's why the next contestant was invited next. It turned out to be Abat Revelin, representative of a famous family. Onlookers marveled at how handsome he is. He can be given the highest grade safely. The guy in turn went to the blackboard and started drawing an unorthodox formula. He told them that the magic he was going to provide them with was called a storm, and the expected level upon completion of this will be top-notch. The guy hadn't used this spell previously at Revelin Manor. He practiced using it in a protective barrier, which a few wizards created in order to minimize the destruction. To perform this spell, the abbess centered his energy. Thanks to his attribute, he could float in the air and accumulate power. After she reached her peak point, the guy released her, and did so by applying in a vortex that carried deadly destruction and power behind it. This vortex was so strong that even the protective barrier couldn't withstand its power. Next to this barrier was a small creature, which even from a great distance was dragged into this vortex and flew into the air. That's when the guy realized he had made a mistake and needed to rectify the situation. Fortunately, he could control this spell, so he soon helped the creature free itself. And that situation ended well. Now in the exam, he demonstrated this technique in a small way. He reported that this spell maximizes the power of wind. It looks simple, but in reality it is a unique magic, and difficult to reproduce because of its structure. In the end, after the story and all the explanations, Abbot Revelin received the highest grade. Chelsea, of course, and expected this from her brother. The professor was pleased with his student and invited the next participant. And next it was up to Leo Flo to demonstrate his skills. The guy took the stage and stated that the unique magic he was presenting was a formula system of attributeless magic. The judges were surprised, for they had never heard of such a concept before. Then the hero said that they must be aware that all magic spells are based on an attribute. In response, he heard that it was true. It was a prerequisite for a spell, and he made Leo smile. He further stated that his unique magic would greatly simplify the process of sorcery itself. Rilda didn't understand how that could happen. Aidman suggested that he was in some kind of delusion. Shin wondered if he meant to say that he would create a brand new system for casting charms. The hero replied firmly that it was true. Glenn admired him, thinking him a born mage. Suddenly Aidman said he was disappointed. They had not come together to listen to fairy tales. The professor, in turn, interrupted him and said he wanted to watch. So just continue with his report. Rilda also supported the idea, so the man couldn't help but agree. For further discussion, the hero went to the blackboard and started drawing there. The formula that was displayed there was quite intricate. Rilda stated to the newcomer that only one Emach used a fundamentally different system of casting charms, unique magic. Leo stated that it was the stargazer Luna who knew about it. With these words, he made his companion angry. Shin then wondered if he was going to squeeze her. Does he really believe that he has reached Luna's level in terms of magic? The protagonist objected. That's clearly not true. He's not comparing himself to the moon. The girl remarks that he should call her the Great Moon. Why are these Zoomers so rude? Continuing to draw, Leo said that Great Moon is a legendary sorceress, but they don't have to be a genius to create a different system of casting charms. And so the guy finally did finish drawing his formula, displaying it on the board. Thanks to that, he made the judges marvel. Rilda asked if he really intended to turn such a thing into life, and Aidman said that judging from the composition of this formula, it was capable of realizing any magic without penalty. Chelsea looked at the board and realized that she didn't even understand what the formula was, and Carl wasn't even trying to understand it. Chloe silently watched what was happening. Aidman questioned for what reason he decided to create this system of enchantments. The boy replied that he had set out to find a way to use any magic freely. The judge thought it was incredible. Now it made sense why they were told this year's students were something. So he asked another question about what he was going to call her. Used this spell to the hero, smiled, and said it would be called the Bible. Hearing that name, Shin couldn't believe it, he reminded him. She's a historical figure who's used the term before. It's Kyle's false hero magic system. Perhaps Leo will prove that Kyle really existed. The judges finally started scoring, after which they handed them over to a faculty member, and he happily announced that Leo Flo had received the highest grade, A+. As he left the stage, the guy reflected on the fact that he couldn't complete the formula system being Kyle, but in this life, he is going to complete it. Before he sat down, he turned his attention to Chloe. The girl was fully concentrated but looked very tired. So Leo inquired if she was all right. The girl just ignored him and went to the blackboard. And the teacher announced that the last contender for today was Chloe Miller. Rilda was telling what she heard this girl is the best student of the magic division. I wonder what she was preparing for them today. Chloe said that the magic she had prepared was unique. She immediately demonstrated it and said it wasn't an extinguished flame. The students were surprised and began to whisper. She's using the attribute of ice, after all. Chelsea thought she had deliberately chosen the opposite attribute for her unique magic. But to the judges, those flames still seemed ordinary. Aidman thought it would be something on the level of what the previous two students had shown, and it wasn't. Rilda said she believed that was the end of it, and if there was nothing else to see, she would announce the result. But Chloe objected. Now she was going to demonstrate the true value of those charms. To do so, the girl used the attribute of water and a large stream, directed it directly at her flame. But surprisingly for everyone, this fire, even under the strong onslaught of water, was not extinguished. Someone suggested that it added resistance to the spell. The girl said it was true the flame would not go out until the spell itself was cast and called off. Afterward, she pressed her hand into a fist, and just like that, the flames went out. Aidman began to ponder the fact that usually spells are destroyed as soon as their mana supply stops. And Chloe, in turn, created a spell that doesn't break this rule. But as a man, I couldn't understand it. And the student went on to say that her unique enchantment was Eternal Flame. The protagonist watched carefully what was happening and thought that it was simply impossible. The teacher received a document that contained the grades. He satisfied Chloe that she also received the highest score. The hero thought that even the moon was not able to create an unquenchable flame. It's the only creature capable of utilizing the afterflame, and it's Erebos. It's been a little while since it happened. The protagonist was alone, pondering what had happened. Earlier, he had asked Celia if she could call Chloe. The girl replied that she was still sleeping. She said she couldn't get a good night's sleep because of preliminaries preparations, so now she's sleeping it off. The guy remarked that that was bad, but in that case, he left. At last, his interlocutor stopped him and asked if something bad was happening to her. Leo was interested that even Celia had picked up on that. The girl revealed that Chloe had gotten a little weird lately. It turned out that she even got into a few fights with the guys from Class A. There were also rumors that she had started resorting to forbidden magical literature. Although she didn't seem like the type, this once again confirmed the lad's musings. And while he was thinking about it, his spirit appeared beside him. Leo inquired how Fiora was feeling. But suddenly he heard a familiar voice note that he had summoned her. It was a phoenix that had reincarnated into human form. The woman wondered why Leo had asked Fiora to summon her. Guy revealed that he was curious as to why Ms. Farina was staying at Lumen. He was well aware that phoenixes were the exact opposite of demonic monsters. That could mean she's here for a reason. Farina realized that he understood and knew something. So I started my story about what happened 5 years ago. That's when Lumen Academy was attacked. Then the victims were 2 students, as well as 2 employees of the academy, and the perpetrator and them were never found. It was because of this that eventually Director Callian Baden assigned her to comb the area thoroughly. And Phoenix has been searching for traces of the conspirators ever since. Leo asked if she had heard that during the selection units of the draft, someone who had tamed a demonic beast had appeared. The interlocutor confirmed that this student had also fallen victim. The hero asked another question as to whether she thought Tartaros might be behind all these events. Farina stated that she suspected them, for that was all she could tell him. The guy asked that in that case, she pass it on from him to the principal. Seng Liu might not be the only disciple who was pushed around by Tartaros. A little more time passed and the day of the heroic and martial skills practice exam came. The first-year class gathered here. Harid noted that everyone is in place, so let the headman bring everyone up to speed. Leo began the story that the heroic and combat skills practice exam would require them to form teams and set out to explore the heroic world, and the world to which they would go. This incident in Chedmore. Those present marveled. Elena asked if the case was in Chedmore. Nella asked if she knew anything about it, although she did recall something from the written test. The classroom teacher shouted to, they covered their mouths, and let him listen to him carefully and let the headman go on. The guy did it. He said it happened 30 years ago. A group of fifth-year students from their academy went on a mission to the central forest of Chedmore. However, they were attacked by representatives of Tartaros. Professor Arvi, magic eye-wielder then a sophomore, was sent as part of a rescue mission. Fortunately, they were able to prevent the group of students from being completely destroyed. Thus, the goal of the offset is to save the wounded and destroy the demonic monsters. In a word, they must help Professor Arvi. Harid's point is that this is not an easy exam. He teaches them to be careful and cautious, so always let them remain alert. Those who do not prove themselves by the end of the exam will be expelled immediately. Hearing these words, the students were once again startled. The class teacher smiled and told them to believe in themselves. They are strong enough, after all. These words raised the morale of his students, so they would like to express their gratitude to him, but he didn't want to listen to them. Ariana suggested starting the breakdowns by teams, so asked for one student at a time to come out and they would start with Class 1. Chelsea was surprised they wouldn't be putting the teams together themselves. Carl was also surprised they will have to work with people they barely know. There was a container in front of the students that had balloons in it, and they would take them out. These balloons had a number on them, so students were randomized into teams. The main character made it to team number 11. He realized it was the very last command. Eventually the teams were distributed, so the first team should have lined up in front of the portal. Chelsea noted that she will be with Princess Zerdinger, and that is encouraging. Celia didn't mind either. She offered to show them the power of the Leyden Empire. Arvi used his magical barrier, and then the magical hero protocol opened up. This was Arvi's world, the prologue chapter of the incident at Chedmore. The girls began to move gradually, and it was hard enough for them. As a result, everything that happened where they went was broadcast on the screen. Rather, the instructor noted that they had just started it, had already progressed quite quickly. Still, kids from heroic families are definitely from a different mold. Sejin's point is that with Celia, a bouncer is guaranteed. Harid said who likes him, so far more impressed with Chelsea. Just like that, they sat there and argued with each other. Suddenly, someone came up to them and said that the speed of the first team was indeed impressive. No wonder they are considered the rising stars of the freshman class. The professor saw that Principal Kalyan had come to see them. Sejin asked what fate had brought him to them. The old man stated that he wanted to draw them back on how much their firstborn had grown. He turned to Professor Arvi. After all, he had to apologize for using a memory that was painful to him in a first-year exam. The wizard himself said he swore he would never forget what happened. So he is only grateful for the annual reminder. After a little while, the first team successfully completed the walkthrough. The headmaster of the academy was pleased. Of course it was her expected from Zerdinger and also Revelin. They distinguished themselves. The girls worked well together despite the strained relationship. Perhaps because they were from the same country. After a little more time, Team 3 also successfully completed the passage. They put their two strongest men in the front line, with the rest of the team in a support role. Kalyan found out that this was the tactic that had led them to success. Team 4 had Chen as well as Nella and it worked out great. In this battle, the director had noticed that Nella's healing magic was definitely special. Chensha's decisive measures, on the other hand, were simply unbelievable. The 7th team in turn also passed this test successfully. The principal reflected on the fact that there are indeed quite a few amazing students. But there is one promising one among them. And now it was the turn to fight team number 11, in which was the main character along with Chloe Miller. Kalyan looked at Leo and felt nostalgic for some reason. It was like being back in his own youth. Lastly, the professor asked if they were ready. The participants nodded, agreeing that they were ready. After that, the army once again opened the hero protocol, and sent them to the world of chance in Chedmore. After a few moments, I already realized that something was wrong here. The other participants could not understand what was going on either, because they all stayed where they were, but 2 people from their team were missing. It turns out that nothing happened. But then where did Leo go, and also Chloe? Seijin was horrified when he saw that 2 students were missing. To find out what happened, the principal asked Professor Arvi what was wrong. The wizard immediately informed him that they needed to stop the scoring immediately. He showed him his own magic book, which said it all. Kalian saw it and couldn't believe his eyes. Arvi confirmed that everything happened exactly as he had realized. This is the appearance of the heroic dungeon. Leo said that normally there should be a notification of the start of the mission as well as the purpose of the mission right away. But now the purpose of the mission was not clear. It just didn't exist. Chloe suggested that maybe this most famous and challenging thing had happened to them. But it wasn't like Professor Arvi's diary page had been lost. She hadn't heard of a hero's diary page being able to go missing like that at all. The hero tried to contact the professor and told him that he couldn't get in touch with the other members of the group. Therefore, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what. But he never heard a reply to his message, so he said that no one answered him. The interlocutor was horrified by such a thing, because it doesn't happen. If they just waited a little longer, the teachers would stop the exam and then get them out of here. Leo asked if they have a chance to do that, then why he is not with her still here. He sees no other reasonable explanation. It's to summon the dungeon heroes. It is because of this that the guy believes they need to go through him completely. Chloe was horrified and said that he was talking nonsense. In this world, even a full group of 10 people is hard to handle. Does he even know how many students have died in the last 30 years he knows? The guy said she had to realize one thing about this place. There's just no other way out. Chloe stated, he must realize that Tartaros plotted the Chadmerd incident precisely to kill them. Possible more hero candidates like them. From horror, the girl fell to her knees. Did not say that. All this forest is one big trap. In order to calm her down, Leo sat down and informed her that she was the best of the first years, after which he held out his hand with a smile on their face. Said if he and her joined their efforts, it could handle everything. Chloe could not understand how he could remain calm such a situation. She thought they would just stay locked in here forever. After thinking it over, she pulled herself together and immediately stood up. Then she asked him if he had a plan. The guy informed me that there are 2 conditions to pass this dungeon. The first is to rescue the first-year students, and the second was to ensure the safety of those same students. To tackle these tasks, they need to improve their capabilities first. The girl understood everything, but asked how they could do it if they had no connection to the outside world. The hero drew what he wanted to ask. Wasn't he and her the only Lumen students in this forest? Chloe said that it's true that they're older, and the ones who were killed 30 years ago must still be alive. The friend of the guy crouched down, and the person she was talking to didn't realize what she was doing. Leo said she was climbing on his back. The girl was a little put out by this, and confused, asking why she was the one who had to get on his back. The boy said, she probably doesn't want their elders to meet Tartaros before they do. She needs to wake up. She is a mage, or her movement speed is extremely low. Chloe realized it, but she didn't want to get on his back. The time was already late. The sun was setting over the horizon. The students who got into this place fought monsters. And then what was happening was someone was watching closely. It was one of the demons who was glad it had started. His name is Chubarun, and he is a demon of the Tartaros clan. Suddenly she turned her attention slightly elsewhere and thought it was a rescue team. They didn't really catch his attention though. Still, his main target would always be those hero candidates that could harm their clan in the future. As for the rest of us, he absolutely doesn't care about them. Chloe and Leo were moving forward and fighting the monsters. What if the demon paid attention to the guy and realized he was out of class? He immediately realized who it was most likely to be Kyle. After a little while, Leo realized that the further they got into the forest, the darker it got. So this was a situation like this. He decided to use Arron's technique. You need to alter the aura a bit with some subtle manipulation. It's a technique that sharpens the sense to a certain level. It's called super perception. Even despite his rather weak body, the guy was able to use it. Soon he told his partner to get ready. He spotted a group of orcs ahead. The girl was a little confused as to how he could spot them so far away, but agreed. And there were indeed monsters ahead that turned their attention to the humans. Thanks to his speed, the hero was rapidly closing the distance with them, after which he shouted to Chloe to act immediately. The girl obeyed him and applied her own magic. As a consequence, several orcs were destroyed by ice magic. It would seem that they were finished and could now head forward. But suddenly Chloe saw something she didn't want to. One of the creatures was still alive and wanted to call for help. Chloe realized that if he blew his horn, every orc in the area would come running. She didn't have time to do anything, so it was bad. A moment later she saw that this orc had been chopped to pieces. Leo did it, of course, thanks to his speed and weaponry. What Chloe saw made her wary. She wondered if there was such a huge difference in strength between them. So she didn't realize if she could ever defeat Leo. The guy didn't move forward for a month and soon said he found the group they needed. The first thing my partner saw was the creatures, so she asked if they were demons. The protagonists immediately rushed forward to help them and asked Chloe to help as well. He moved rather quickly, applying his own skills that he had built up with experience. Chloe was also not left out and used her power. The main character shouted to those guys who were defending themselves not to retreat. He's on his way. And the demon at that moment also tried to attack the children. But his attack was not destined to come to fruition, for the hero chopped him to pieces. The other demons couldn't believe their eyes. Yes, and the affected children were also terrified. And the monster right in front of the guy was sizzling. Suddenly a girl who was in the casualty group asked if the guy was on the rescue team. Leo confirmed it, and while he was doing so, another monster tried to attack him. He used the magic summoning circle and summoned some strange creatures. The guy was immediately shouted to be careful, and he saw that they were Gorgoroth worms. So he used his Phoenix Fire aura. Thanks to that, he was able to handle the shift with ease. The victims were shocked. They couldn't believe this could happen. And the girl, who was the strongest person present, decided to act the same way. She recited a spell and used her special magic. It was a directed beam. Due to the fact that the demons were discouraged by what was happening, they stayed put. And thus, the girl's technique was destroyed. Chloe noticed that this girl used a special magic. In that case, she can only be one. Is she really who she thinks she is? Soon, the new acquaintance was thanking the two for their help. She was worried when the demons suddenly appeared in front of them. However, their timely appearance helped them a lot. Chloe apologized and said that she needed to talk to her teammate about something. The interlocutor stated that they could certainly do that. And when they stepped away, Chloe started telling me who it was. It turns out it's Arron. Leo wondered if she was really who the girl thought she was, if it was true. The girl confirmed that she was indeed Professor Arby's younger sister. And it turns out that she died in this forest 30 years ago. He must remember this group of students she went into the woods with. No one has ever been able to save them. It was Alia's squad that they ran into. Chubaren is a warrior knight of Tartaros, and is known to be the first to attack Alia's unit specifically. After all, Tartaros organized the incident at Chedmore. It was to destroy the brilliant sorceress Alia Jerwen, an outstanding candidate for hero. That's exactly how they got into hero protocol. They won't be able to protect them with their powers. If they want to fulfill the conditions, it's worth looking for other groups. The boy asked in surprise, wondering if she was suggesting just abandoning them. Chloe resented whether he thought she wanted it herself. This is the heroic world of reality after all. They're going to die anyway. Her tone became a little confused, and she said they had been dead for like 30 years. Leo confirmed it. These kids have been really dead for a long time, but they can't just leave them here. The woman was angry and shouted for him to come to his senses at last. This attracted the attention of those present. Chloe continued to shout that she recognized what he was, that he was amazing and generous and all that sort of thing. But now was not the time for reckless behavior. That's why he's done playing the hero. And after that aggressive statement, she cried. Leo walked over to her for blue comfort, after which he stroked her head and remarked that if she said so, let her not think so lightly. In any case, she is a candidate for hero herself. And they don't pretend to be. It's just part of the journey to becoming real heroes. The interlocutor was somewhat reassured by this, and also encouraged by him. The hero, however, went on to say that they had already changed the course of events anyway. Chloe didn't understand in what sense he was saying it. Leo had only asked her to look around. Was the forest so dark when he not only met Alia's squad? By this point, Chubaren should have gotten rid of her by now. Chloe pondered the fact that it was all useless, but she told him to decide for himself. Leo then offered to move on with Alia's squad. His partner followed him and noted that he was back on top, leaving her behind. And this was the first time it had happened. The girl thought about how she still couldn't cope, and on the pages of her book, which radiated dark energy, all these children were wanted. Teyad, the first-year magical unit, asked the others, "Isn't it strange that only 2 saviors arrived?" Dina confirmed that it looked odd, and they were about their age. Velik even suggested that it could be another Tartaros trap. So they were excited. Alia didn't know what they were talking about. If they were on the demons' side, wouldn't they be fighting alongside them? That kid, he's really pretty cool, in her opinion. The others just couldn't believe what they were hearing. I can't believe Alia would say such a thing about someone. The girl asked why they had such a reaction. Dina said she just thought her brother would make her standards much higher. So while they were chatting, the main character approached them. after which he asked that they listen to him carefully. They need to get out of this forest as quickly as possible. Teod asked why that was necessary. Since reinforcements had arrived, they could quietly and methodically massacre the monsters as they had planned. But the hero shouted that they couldn't take that risk, because right now there's a demon of the highest order headed this way. The interlocutors were greatly surprised to hear this information. After all, they were well aware that such a demon was as strong as a whole platoon. Leo stated that this is the reason why they need to avoid a direct confrontation. Thus, their main goal is to get back alive. Alia reflected at that moment that he reminded her a lot of her brother. The hero asked if they were ready, and they all nodded in agreement. The guy added that in that case it's not like they're moving out right now. Everyone headed in a direction out of the woods rather quickly. Chloe was running behind Alia, and the girl turned her attention to her. That facial expression struck her as rather odd. At the same time, the Lumen Academy was in a terrible turmoil. The teachers have been yelling for everyone to look for any records of turning a heroic protocol into a heroic dungeon. They have very little time. The director asked if they are not allowed in. Does that mean it is a good sign? Arvi stated that it was true that the heroic dungeon could not be entered while the previous group was still inside. It can only mean that these two are still alive. But it had been 3 hours since they had entered the world of heroic protocol. By now, it should have been nightfall. Kalian asked Arvi about the time he had defeated Chubaran 30 years ago. The interlocutor noted that it happened around midnight. But whether to hope for him and from the past is all they can do. Suddenly, an assistant burst into the room. Lena informed the head that they had found the person who sold the demonic beast summoning catalyst to student Lu. She also noted that it was about the Tartaros connection. Everyone felt a strong surge of energy coming from inside the room. It was Arvi who couldn't contain his anger at Tartaros. The principal understood his feelings. He asked him to calm down. Arvi stated that he'd better go cool his head. As he walked away, Lena took a moment to realize that she understood. As expected of someone who had become a great hero, he was brimming with hatred for demons. Kalian said he could really be understood. No body or even any memorabilia of his sister had been found during that incident 30 years ago. But they will leave that topic for now. The man wonders who sold the demonic beast summoning catalyst to student Liu after all. Elena said it was a black market trader. Settled on the outskirts of Lumeria this year, and it's a pretty popular spot for first-timers. Kalian asked if she meant to say that Tartaros' spies had infiltrated Lumeria. She said that's not exactly true. They don't work directly for Tartaros. But what is clear is that that organization supplies them with artifacts. The man wondered. He didn't understand what he wasn't accomplishing with this. As he pondered this, he carefully read the document that had been handed to him, and what he saw on one of the pages made his heart twitch. It said that Chloe Miller had bought a black spellbook. The principal immediately took notice and told Elena to get Professor Glenn. The girl said she would do it now, and the old man hesitated. His instinct, tempered by countless bouts with death, seemed to be screaming at him. He's screaming about the danger being right under his nose. The protagonist at the head of a newly formed squad was making his way forward. He skillfully fought the small creatures that got in the way and destroyed them, and soon wondered if it had been too long already, using a heightened sense of wonder. To top it all off, and everyone else is already on edge. That's why he soon suggested that everyone take a little break. The guys thought, does he robot not look tired at all? His skill must be enormous. Thus the troop stopped and everyone went about their business resting. Chloe, in turn, read this forbidden book, which was a dark spell. This fascinating process was interrupted by Aaliyah. Chloe asked her what it was about, and the girl said she wanted to ask about something. I wonder what their relationship with Leo is like, if they're not casually dating. She was indignant and said it was not going to happen. Although Aaliyah noted that her reaction did not suggest that, it got Chloe thinking. She realized that this was the past. Even though in reality it's 30 years older than her, here she's just a first year, so no different from her classmates. Thinking about it, Chloe wondered why she was asking. Did she really like Leo? Aaliyah was a little confused by this question, after which she reported that if she was honest, he had stirred her heart. Chloe asked, having fallen for her at first sight. She realized that Aaliyah Jerome was a brilliant sorceress who had not been forgotten even 30 years after her death. Leo had managed to get her attention for the most amazing time. The interviewee stated that she doesn't even know if it's love or not yet. She is thinking about how to say it, right? He just looks a lot like her brother, especially in those moments when he screws up, but still succeeds in the end. Chloe wondered if she was talking about someone who had a magic eye. Aaliyah was surprised to hear this one. She didn't understand which window she was talking about. The girl pretended to be confused, so she asked if she was talking about RV. The interviewee confirmed he is the one who constantly challenges the impossible. The girl made a point of saying that if you talk about it, it really does sound like Leo. They even got along with him at first, but then things didn't go according to plan, because she was starting to get really jealous of him. Aaliyah listened to her and said that this one was not much like her. They chatted for a very long time, and the girl told me that she was also very jealous of her brother. He looked like an empty-headed goon, but he still won everywhere and anywhere, and that pissed her off. It's a secret, of course, but her new original magic was also created by him. She's good at mastering magic that already exists, but it's hard to come up with something of her own. It even worked out that she had failed the Lumen entrance exams twice. Chloe just couldn't believe it, and the interviewee went on to say that at one point she really hated her brother. She had an inferiority complex. But then things changed dramatically, and envy was replaced by admiration. Chloe was taken aback by this statement, so much so that she even hindered her book. She wondered who Leo really was to her. The hero sensed danger at that moment, so he got up and ordered everyone to stand up urgently. Their plans have drastically changed, and escape is no longer possible. Everyone was wary. They could hear a huge monster approaching them. Leo pulled out his weapon and told everyone not to be afraid. Let them remember that they are heroes by nature. Although the people present were wary, they were calmer at these words. And soon, a demon appeared out of the darkness. It had finally found those kids after all. The demon knight Chuba-Ren prepared to attack. He wanted to exterminate this heroic spawn. The first watercourse was hit by the main character but managed to return. In the air, he pondered the fact that this monster had been ordered to exterminate the young heroes in Chedmore. But it's amazing that the first thing he did was seriously lash out at him just passing a level. In that case, does he really put him on a par with this heroic brat? Next, the guy stated to Chloe that the demon was coming, so let her get ready. Chuba-Ren actually attacked using his own demonic power. To protect herself and everyone else, Chloe used ice magic and put up a barrier. Leo realized that this defensive structure would be able to hold off the enemy's attack. That's why he seized the moment and immediately rushed forward, after which in a few moments he found himself in the demonic knight's blind spot. In the end, Chuba-Ren was unable to react, and Leo managed to injure him. The others saw that he had slashed that monster. That was reassuring. But suddenly they saw that something strange had happened. After all, the demon's neck, which had only recently been cut, had rejoined. The young students were surprised at this, and the hero shouted for them to stay focused. Have them move away from Chuba-Ren now. This monster uses the void. It is a curse that nullifies any attacks. The boy asked. But what would they do in such a case? Aaliyah pointed out that they couldn't defeat such a monster. Leo then said that the void curse is not all-powerful. Besides, he didn't create it himself, which means there are limits to its use. The demon raised his weapon again and asked if they seriously believed they could defeat him. This kid is just a shadow of the great hero's blog after all. Leo said he had a question for him too. Is he really that afraid of budding heroes? With these words, the guy tried to divert the enemy's attention, after which he ordered everyone to attack and did so himself. Aaliyah had been preparing her attack concerting force all this time, after which she directed spiritual rays directly at the demon. Chuba-Ren didn't like this damn star magic. He realized that Lady Salanta was right. They must be finished off beforehand. Therefore, he decided to act more decisively and attacked Leo first. But next, he was going to do something else, and the hero noticed it. So informed the others to duck out immediately. Unfortunately, some did not react in time, so they were seriously injured. Then the guy rushed to their aid to get them away from here, and soon they were behind the barrier that Chloe had created. Aaliyah was horrified to see what had happened, and asked if everyone was unharmed. She heard back from her comrade that he was still in the stream, but that Velik had been hurt badly. Leo reassured them not to worry. His internal organs were intact, and the bleeding could be stopped by the aura. Next, the guy told Chloe that one powerful charge wasn't going away. She agreed, but asked him to buy her some time. The hero set out to do just that, and to do so, he used his own star magic. The girl pondered that while Leo was distracting this monster, she needed to prepare something powerful enough to resist the void curse. So she once again decided to use the forbidden book. She thought that if she used this spell, she could win. The members of the lost group creaturely watched what was happening. They didn't realize the battle could be so intense. At this time, the protagonist, thanks to his star magic, continued the battle with Chuba-Ren. Still, the demon wasn't keeping up with the number of clones Leo had created. It was because of this that he was getting quite a few hard hits. Teyud admired the boy's strength. He wondered if he would ever be able to fight like him. Dina suggested that it was possible. Aaliyah, on the other hand, was pondering that this was definitely some sort of star magic. She was getting more and more curious as to who it was. Suddenly the girl felt some strong, yet dark magic. She turned her attention to its source and saw that it was Chloe who had used it. The girl didn't look like herself, she was possessed by something. And with a haughty voice she said, "You vile demon," was preparing to die. But she also asked Leo to duck, because he might get hit. If he burns to the ground, let him change the blame to himself. The guy realized she was using. Having accumulated a powerful enough charge, Chloe released the unquenchable flame directly at the demon. Leo saw fire, not ice. This meant it was the same spell as the exam. The demonic knight was caught in the epicenter of this spell. Chloe rejoiced when she saw his suffering. She wondered if he liked her unquenchable flame. Let him die in hellish agony. Leo watched carefully and saw that the flames were coming back up. That's why he shouted to the girl to quickly cancel this spell. Her staff at that moment had already given a crack due to the onslaught on it. Chloe was stupefied. She didn't listen to anyone and said he deserved much more suffering. It was clear to the guy that she wasn't going to listen to him, so he rushed after her. Her staff was already in critical condition at that moment, and trouble could soon be brewing. The hero shortened the distance rather quickly, and immediately knocked the dark book out of the girl's hands. After that, she finally did calm down and realize what had happened. Her condition after application was not good. Leo asked me to tell you, only honestly. It was about her unquenchable flame, whether it was really her unique magic. Her companion said sadly that it wasn't. It turns out she found this spell in one book. The boy knew it. It was the flame of Erebos after all. He also saw that Chuberin had once again used the healing skill, and would soon be ready to fight again. So he asked Chloe to listen carefully. It was black magic. She couldn't believe it. The guy confirmed it's that Grimoire is a demon artifact. A realization came to the girl. She was confused and wondered what she had done. If so, she didn't deserve the title of hero. Leo immediately put a hand on her shoulder and ordered her to come to her senses. There was no mention of Chuberin using the void. And that can only mean that he spent all the charges of these charms just in the battle with Aaliyah's group. He hoped it understood everything now. 30 years ago, though they had been gripped by terror, no one had given up. They fought to the very end. It happened in a battle where there was no chance of victory. So he has a question about what they teach them at Lumen. The interlocutor, without thinking, said that they are taught to excel themselves. And so, after this conversation, Chloe now understood everything. Somewhere in the back of her mind she had always admired the man. He was too cool to be envied. Suddenly her musings were interrupted by Aaliyah. She pulled her own staff and motioned for Chloe to take it. The guy at that moment thought that it was not bad Chloe's spell had taken away his charge of emptiness after all. It meant that it was time to be done with him. Suddenly he heard and felt the magic someone was using. It was Chloe. At that moment, he realized that he had also surpassed himself. And he did it so as not to embarrass himself in front of those who believe in him. Though the whole thing does seem strange to him. The runes of true magic inspire him a lot for some reason. Now the lad prepared to fight on. At that moment, Chuberin just rushed into the attack. Of course, Leo managed to block his straight punch, even though it was very strong. But after that, the monster decided to make his onslaught even stronger. Because of this, it was getting harder and harder for the protagonist to hold on to this power. Thus, he even lost his concentration a bit. The demonic knight saw this, and with his free hand swung to strike. Consequently, the protagonist didn't have time to block it and got a serious hit, which caused it to fly several meters to the side, hitting the nearest tree. And when that happened, Chuberin declared that this was the end for them. Now the epitome of a great hero will die. Suddenly, right in front of him, Leo noticed a snowflake that was definitely the epitome of magic. He realized who used it and said that demons like his enemy they dealt with the first time. The enemy didn't realize it was him gibbering to him. And at that moment, right behind his back was Chloe, who said that Chuberin was finished. She thought that her unique magic was finally able to come to an end thanks to Leo. And so the new spell she was using was called Ice World. It covered a huge area. Through the use of this powerful spell, the demon was imprisoned in ice. Leo walked over to him and tried to touch him. He touched his finger lightly as the ice began to crack. Thus their strong enemy and was destroyed. But that wasn't all the protagonist wanted to destroy. He turned his attention to a dark book that consisted of demon magic. After which, the guy walked over to it and used the flames of the Zerdingers to destroy it. After all, this demonic artifact shouldn't exist. It was announced that the participants unlocked the achievement and defeated the boss. Leo has to admit that Chloe's unique magic is really impressive. He would never have been able to cast such a large-scale area spell. The girl told Leo that she wanted to confess to the entire academy, and she would probably be expelled. Guy noted that he found it hard to believe that a hero candidate like her would be eliminated. I'm sure one day she really will be. The others also ran up to them, and Aaliyah said that they weren't just adorable, they were both amazing. Dina noted that it was true. They looked like real heroes. And the hero said they all did really well, they gave it their all. Chloe, in turn, thanked for the staff. It served her well. Without its help she would not have been able to win. Aaliyah smiled and told Chloe to keep it. Dina said it was true, we had them. They also held out their valuables to Leo and asked him to accept it as a gift. Suddenly there was a shout that there were survivors here and there was a need to hurry. Arvi arrived on the scene and there he saw his sister. Chloe was amazed to see the young professor. Here he was about their age. Leo was not surprised. It had happened 30 years ago, after all. The guy asked his sister if she was okay. The girl stated that she was fine, and the guys from the rescue team came to help. She met someone and he looked a lot like him. In the end, the mission was accomplished, and Chloe was glad everyone was still alive. Aaliyah wanted to introduce her saviors, but I saw that there was no one at the place where they had been. So I didn't understand where they had gone. During this time, Chloe along with the main characters were moving. The world they were towards was crumbling. Leo turned his attention to the notifications. It said he had received a reward for the mission. It was a gift. And the last they saw of it was Arvi, who was crying with happiness at seeing his sister. As time went on, the protagonist woke up in a hospital. He heard a familiar voice that noted that he was finally awake after all. And he had an adult Professor Arvi in his room at that moment. The man only thanked the guy for saving the girl. And he also asked me to pass on his thanks, Ms. Miller. He then left the room they were in. And the headmaster of the academy had already entered it. The protagonist greeted Rector Kalyan. The old man said there was no need for him to get up. Afterwards, he asked how he was feeling. The guy replied that his condition was normal. The next thing the headmaster asked was to tell him what had happened inside the records. He wondered if the incident had something to do with Chloe's grimoire. The hero was surprised. He didn't understand how they knew. Kalyan talked about not finding out where Seng Lu had bought the summoning amplifier. It was also where Chloe had purchased this grimoire. The old man knew that, so this book was also a demonic artifact. The boy wondered if the demonic artifact was a shard of Erebos. In other words, the physical embodiment of a part of him. If such a shard were to be possessed by a demon in his hands, it would become a powerful weapon. But anyone else who dared to use such a thing would face only one gradual madness. In the end, the hero decided to state the situation succinctly. He reported how they met Aaliyah's group and what they were doing. He also told me how Chloe used that grimoire and almost went crazy. The director had listened to him carefully, and now it was clear to him. If what he said is true, you're saying the artifact was able to affect the hero's world. The guy said that after they got rid of it, the records went back to their original state. So he thinks his assumption is correct. Suddenly, between their conversation, Chloe woke up, who saw the director and became wary. The old man asked her to relax. After that, he called Elena into the room. He said that now that they were both awake, he wanted to clarify something. Wrapped up were the items donated by the rescued children to the hero. Chloe was adorned that she was actually holding Aaliyah's staff. Kalyan asked to explain to him where the award had come from. After all, such a thing was not supposed to happen. Then how did these items end up in their hands? Leo realized that, judging by Chloe's reaction, she wasn't getting anything. It was still the same as the entrance exam. Still, there are no direct rewards when traversing worlds from the hero's personal records, and this is the rule. All the rewards of a world are strictly tied to its owner, and it comes out that they were both broken, but it's not clear why. The reward was the promise of the Fairy King, so the guy didn't understand why on earth it was happening to him again. Eventually, he reported that it was a reward for passing. The interlocutor wondered if he was saying that for closing Professor Arvi's records, they received these items. Leo confirmed what was just announced. He thought that something had originally gone wrong with that tape back when the world was being reconstructed. He pondered the need to come up with a plausible excuse. The old man noted that it looked like Ms. Miller was completely unaware of this. But it was unclear why Leo had gotten the awards. The girl speculated that maybe it was because his contribution to the passage was greater. She had heard that getting awards depended on the hero's personal contribution. Kalyan thought about it for a moment and said it actually made sense. After that, he stood up and said that they would investigate. After a little investigation by their experts, the awards would be returned to them. Also, lastly, he wants to tell them not to tell anyone about the demonic artifact. Chloe was surprised and asked, but why not? After all, she had broken the rules. Then the principal smiled and told them that they had more than just external enemies. Either way, the two of them did a great job. When the man left, the girl, a little confused, turned to Leo. There was something she wanted to tell him. At that moment, she was shy and had a hard time. Suddenly Chelsea, Carl, and also Celia burst into the room. And along with them, the principal also returned. Smiling, he told the honored candidates that there would be a holiday party tomorrow night. If they didn't have the right clothes, it would be a good time to go to Lumeria and shop. Chloe, also Leo, was surprised to hear about the party. A little time passed and the announcer announced that this party was for first-timers who had survived their placement exams. The first battle of the brave warriors was successfully fought. So he offers a look at the distinguished guests who have honored them with their presence. Carl rejoiced and noted that this reward for all their torment. And Tide said that Lumen Academy was literally a cakewalk. In the banquet hall, there was a quiet atmosphere. Those who had already arrived whispered and nibbled on the sumptuous food. Barely a guy was doing the same thing, and they were wondering where their boys were stuck. Lumen doesn't forgive tardiness after all. Suddenly it was announced that the next pair of heroes had arrived. Let them come out to them. That's Nella Carvin and Elena Layden from 5th grade. Let them see how beautiful they are. The guys were thrilled when they saw them. Carl remarked that they looked great. Elena laughed at them, wondering if they had stolen their tales from their fathers, when Carl was ashamed of himself for staring at her. The host announced that the next guests were the pride of the Lord and Empire. That's brother and also Revelin's sister. Some were jealous and wanted to be in the girls' shoes. Carl remarked that Chelsea looked like a princess from a fairy tale, and Elena said the people of the Empire had them surrounded. Well, it's nothing new though. It's a big fish. Soon another sweet couple arrived, which everyone was delighted to see. This is Celia Zerdinger and also Leo Flo. Let him greet them. The girl was indignant and didn't understand why, of all people, she was paired with him specifically. The boy didn't understand what she didn't like though. Those present rejoiced, saw the headman. He smiled sweetly at his comrades and waved his hand. They thought he was their star and the real headman. Then another professor approached the microphone. She sweetly inquired how the kids were feeling and if they were enjoying the evening. Carl remembered the day she had screamed. The others also remembered it, so they declared it cool, and hoped she didn't lose her temper again. The professor was very glad that they liked everything. But in any case, it asked to listen to them carefully. Right now, she's about to announce the results of the placement exams. The atmosphere became a little tense. Carl wondered if she really thought she wouldn't spoil the whole atmosphere with this. The woman was well aware of this herself, so, as expected, not everyone was happy about it. That's why they'll only name the top 3 students in each division today. But they needn't worry. As early as tomorrow, the rest will know their results too. The classroom teachers are all sound. Now, let the unit reps not announce their top students. The first to be called to the microphone was the head of the Night Division, Ice Knight Ainaladier. The man began by saying that each of them had done well in the distribution exams. That's why he would now announce the names of the best in the Night Divisions, starting from the first place. And then the list of first places popped up on the screen. First place went to Celia Zerdinger, followed by Duran Moira and Chen Xia. Celia was surprised to see this list. She didn't realize where Leo was. Didn't even make it to the top. Glenn came out next and presented the names of the top students of the Magic Division. First up is Abbott Revelin, followed by Chelsea Revelin and Emio Lucian. Chelsea was also surprised by the list. She didn't understand why Leo wasn't at the top. The guy said it's no big deal, and it happens. But Carl's point is really weird. He's not in the top, and neither is Chloe. Worried, Celia turned her attention to her. But the girl was smiling. She wasn't upset. Because of that damned book, the professor had to give her a 0 for practicing. But Ms. Miller would still prove herself to be the best magician at the academy, despite that fact. Seijin stated that for him personally, Chloe will always be the top student in the Magic Division. Everyone was well aware that this was indeed the case, and the girl herself, despite the fact that did not get into the top, was not upset at all. Next, Yura came to the microphone. She addressed the newcomers from the recruitment unit, looking forward to their success in the next exams. Despite her looks, some already wanted to join her unit. The woman announced a list of the top students. She has Walden Tyden first, followed by Elsa Gregorin and Jordan Lucen. Those present were once again surprised because Leo is not there again. After the results were announced, Ariana asked if everyone was happy. Now it was time to present them the best student on all fronts and the head of the course. This is the one who performed the best in the exams and will be the next head of the course. And that man is Leo Flo. May he continue to work hard. A lot of people finally got excited when they heard his name. Therefore, the hall met this information, and with great applause. But suddenly someone raised their hand and noticed that he objected. Why on earth is Leo Flo assigned to an old age if he doesn't go to any top? This guy's name is Emio Lucian. He's taken the top 3 of the Magic Division. The hero himself was in agreement with this question. He didn't understand why Ariana was a little confused and said there was actually a good reason for that. And when she started to get really angry, after which she claimed they were devils. They are rascals and she won't say it again, so let them nail that information down. Harrod assumed that a demon was possessed in her at these moments, though it was amusing to watch. The interlocutor agreed, and the professor continued to yell. First, generalist students are not included in the top list of a particular division, because you can't put them on a par with representatives of one single division. You can take, for example, the mage knights, their aura abilities. Weaker than a pure knight, and magic abilities also perform to a pure mage. However, the combination of the best traits of both gives them not a bad power. Also, Leo's practical skill scores for combat skills and heroic traits are the highest among first-year students. Emio was a little confused, but asked if the top participants didn't also get top marks in the practical part of the exam. Ariana shouted that he was a jackass. After all, he had cleared the hero dungeon. He also struck down Chubaran himself. Those present could not believe it. Elena asked if the information was true, and Carl noted that it had also happened to only one Chloe. The protagonist nodded, confirming all these words. Ariana had finally come to her senses at that point. She was shy again and said that Leo got first place in the exams because he had outstanding ability. Seijin interrupted her and said that was enough. They think she has already convinced the students. It was then announced that that was the end of it. Let the students enjoy the party. In the course of the meal, Yura turned to Glenn. She wondered, if Universalists were also included in the final ranking, what the results would be. The man noted that the results had changed a lot for the magnetized units. One man was simply moved by all of them. The girl swept. It turns out that the first one in the magic divisions had to be the one she was thinking of. Glenn confirmed that Leo had the highest score. Yura wondered if it was true and the summoning units would be the same. Ein then pointed out that the same thing happened in the Knights. Leo Flo is first in everything. The girl remarked that his ambition to become a better all-rounder was unique. The man remarked that it was true, it turned out to be quite real. But Glenn shouted that he belonged in magic anyway. It was his calling. Yura told him not to make her laugh. Does he really think such talent in the draft is lying around on the road? Then Ein told these two that Leo was best suited to be a swordsman. Wasn't it clear to them? Carlo's assistant, as well as Anna, could no longer stand all the arguing. And so it went one day after the incident. Carl noted that he seemed to have had a little too much to drink yesterday. Chelsea stated that it was the first time she had ever seen someone blow 2 liters of orange juice. Suddenly, the class teacher entered the room and told everyone to be quiet. He's got an announcement for a relative field trip. They're headed for the land of the elves. Elena said they already know that. And they also know that the class can pick a specific location. Tide confirmed. They're the ones thinking about the Forest of Duin, also called the Warm Forest. There are so many different fruits there. You just can't count. But Harrod pointed his finger on the board and said they would go to El Salbekia. The students were disappointed. Carl said it was a small, cold town. Elena didn't understand what they were even doing out there in such a backwater. Tide hoped it was a joke. But the teacher had said that they should let old age take its toll. It was his choice. They were surprised and immediately asked him why he chose this place. Leo explained that they needed to start by procuring everything they needed in Lumeria. Elena felt like she'd have to start with the gloves, and Chelsea thought about looking for just the right jacket, pondering the point of direction. The hero thought that people might find this town unremarkable, and he in turn knows full well that the sacred land of the fairies is there. Speaking of Silid the guy, wondering how he's doing. A little more time passed, and the hero stood with the girl at the fountain. He noted that he had bought food and equipment, and let Nella handle the potions. His companion agreed to this. The first thing the lad did after the discussion was to go to the butcher. After that, he went to the magic shop and purchased potions. In the end, he had already done his part, and suddenly turned his attention sideways. He saw that the 13th block of Kupaju Street was next to him, so he was almost there. That's why he headed forward, and arrived at an interesting building that had a Lutek inscription above it. The guy understood that it was here that Senya and Chloe had acquired their artifacts. The guy left his backpack in front of the entrance, after which he leisurely entered a building that was apparently abandoned. He thought he knew nothing that wasn't here after all. After Lumen's crime-solving team had been here. Is that teddy bear really all there is? Suddenly, this toy caught his attention. The investigation had to seize every last item after all, and the store was definitely still closed. Perhaps it is an item that reduces vigilance. Suddenly, the doll began to move. She attacked the protagonist, spewing something from her eyes. Leo figured out it was a demonic artifact. To all of this, he realized that he was not an easy man at all. In addition to lowering your guard, there's a lot more to it. That voice was also, to him, quite familiar. The creature called him an empathetic sucker, for he had sensed its charms. It became clear to the boy that this was Silanta, and she is the queen of the witches. One of the 3 Legion commanders who were destroyed 500 years ago. It can't be a real body. It must be a clone made from a piece of flesh. The creature said that he had an aura as well as magic power. So he is a magic knight. What an exceptional talent. Let it allow him to be rewarded. However, let this little guy trade on his keen instincts. Once again she tried to attack, but the guy managed to dodge. The monster, in turn, continued to follow him with its tentacles. Leo realized that he was no match for her in his condition, so he had to get out of here as soon as possible. So he prepared himself to do just that. Silanta towered right over him. She thanked the promising hero for the food, after which she had already tried to attack him. When that happened, the guy smiled. He felt an ally. It turned out that Arvi, who was using the Spear of Light skill, was nearby. Thanks to this skill, he nearly destroyed the creature with just one blow. The monster was still conscious, though its body was almost destroyed. Silanta noticed that it was a wizard with a magic eye. But either way, she might say it's even better, because an audience is always a good place to be. The protagonist let his guard down a bit and was attacked from behind. Arvi noted that the creature was mean enough, and in order to protect himself as well as the guy, he used a barrier. After that, he towered over the monster and called it demonic scum. It's just another demonic scum, nothing more. Silanta was angry when it all happened. Him on. She was angry at those nasty eyes he possessed. It was the reason she was going to rip them out and gut him herself in order to taste his flesh. But Arvi informed her that he wasn't at all interested in a pathetic clone like her. So he once again used his deadly skill to make the creature die. And eventually this demonic artifact was destroyed. The protagonist pondered the fact that Arvi Jaron is the possessor of the magical eye of evil. However, he is better known by another nickname, and they call him none other than the Purifier of Tartarus. If rumors are to be believed, he became Professor Lumiere for one thing only, and that is the right to freely cross the border to hunt demons. The guy really understood the road in front of him. All of a sudden, the professor asked the guy to bother to explain how it happened. The hero tells us that this creature appeared after he was looking around the room. She was imprisoned by a curse in this bear cub. It was interesting to the man, but the investigative team at Lumer definitely had to answer for it. Still, he's going to release details about his involvement in what happened, and if he needs any help, he can just ask for it. After all, he's grateful to him for what he's done. When it was over, the hero continued to think about this man. House Jaron is one of the 3 noble families that run Lumer. Perhaps it makes sense to ask him for admission to the restricted section in the library. The boy's musings were interrupted by Nella, who noted that he was here. She had already finished shopping, too. At that, she wondered why the headman was injured. How come? She immediately began to treat him, and the hero said that it was all nonsense, but he was grateful. Then he went on to reflect that this event only confirmed his hunch. Silanta is responsible for what happened with the summoner. It turns out that for the book on dark magic, which was in Chloe's possession. But I wonder what she was trying to accomplish with all of this. It's been a week since it happened. The students gathered near the teleporter, and the headman asked if everyone had prepared. They confirmed that they had. Celia, who was next to ask about the guy why his class is going to El Salbesia, she knows it is already very cold there. The hero said that they have been having hot weather lately, so they will go to a place where it is cooler. The companion noted that she hated the cold, so let him enjoy his trip. Leo also told her to take care of herself too. He then informed his 5th grade class to get them all ready. Chelsea was already looking forward to starting a new adventure. Carl said he couldn't stand the cold either. The hero thought it was really time for them to depart. El Salbesia, the kingdom of fairies and elves, awaits them all. Next, the events moved to the Siren Academy. It is a military school for elven heroes. Several students asked the 3rd one what his strange clothes are. They couldn't understand how he'd even managed to get into Siren in the first place. What could be expected of a half-breed, though? He flaunted his ancestry to everyone. The boy was silent, listening to all this. Suddenly, someone came up to them and stated that it was not appropriate to behave in such a manner towards their peer. Let them behave as befits a student of Sirens. This girl's name is Lunia El Lunda of the House of Lunda. The girl asked if she didn't care that a half-breed was studying with them. The boy pointed out that it was true. His very existence was an insult to all of them. Let her just look at what he was wearing. It was obvious that he was an elf who didn't know what civilization was. Lunia noted that it made sense to her. It was another one of those. If they don't like the way he looks, let them take off their clothes and give them to him. Let them stop this mess if they're not going to help him. That girl's got quite a temper. Then she told Ms. Lunda she'd better avoid it. She's from a noble house. She's the daughter of powerful and aristocratic people, so it's not allowed. They don't understand how it's come to this. The girl kept shouting and asking if they weren't ashamed of what they had done here. They got together in a crowd and started insulting him, isn't that right? She offers to swap if they don't like it here. At the end of the conversation, the interviewees realized they'd better leave. She's kind of crazy. And when he was gone, Lunia asked why the guy was dressed like that. She gets an indefinable feeling of pity for him. He smiled and said that someone had simply stolen his clothes. His name is Luca Aneris. He is the third in the ranking of firstborn siren and is a half-elf. Then the interlocutor tied her scarf around his neck. The guy got confused and asked to take his scarf back. She was cold. Lunia reported that it was fine. Don't let them worry about her. The boy then remarked that she was in a particularly good mood today. The girl said it was true that it looked like her contractor had finally hatched. Luca immediately congratulated her on it. The girl smiled and said she was leaving in that case. After that meeting, she went to her daddy and told him that her contractor had finally hatched. The man saw his daughter and remarked that he had asked her to call him professor at the academy. His name is Alan Lunda. He is the patriarch of House Lunda and the keeper of Farina's vows. But he confirmed that Farina's cub had indeed hatched. Lunia was pleased. She knew that. But she wondered if she could see him. Alan reported that there is a nuance here. Her contractor seems to have already entered into a contract. As for the details, he would find out about that later. The girl became very angry when she heard this information. So she interrupted her father and asked who the damn thief was. He had stolen the contract from under her nose. The protagonist, along with his class, has finally arrived Velkia, the capital of El Salbakia. Everyone was very cold, so Carl asked to just kill them already, and that was it. Leo remarked that he thought it was quite tolerable here, to say the least. Harid ordered everyone to stop making a broadside and let them line up. He reported that it is Velkia, the capital of El Salbakia. Does anyone know the history of this city? He wondered. Chelsea raised her hand. She began the story that Velkia was named after the fairy knight Velkia Ersar. She was one of Luna's disciples. The hero, however, knew that to be accurate, he was a disciple of Luna as well as Arron. Velkia is an arrogant rascal. What a pathetic title he'd given himself, Knight of the Fairies. The class teacher confirmed the information from the girl. He would only add to this information by saying that House Ersar now ruled the country. As they were chatting, so someone was already approaching them. So everyone noticed the uninvited guests. Carl asked in surprise if even here there were bandits. Harid said that there were bad people everywhere. Suddenly the man saw who it was. The arrivals asked how Professor Harrod was doing. It turned out to be an elf aristocrat along with his men. Of course, the girls were delighted when they saw them. This guy's name is Leong Ersar. He's a member of El Salbekia's council and head of House Ersar. He said he's been waiting for the professor here for a long time. The man remarked that the years go by and the man doesn't change. Elena assumed it looked like she had met her soulmate. Then he was asked if age did not matter to them. The interlocutor asked what he meant. She told him to just not tell her he was jealous of her. The guy said that's natural. It's not. She knows that elves live a very long time and hardly ever age. In that case, the question follows from here. How old does she think he really is? They discussed the matter and thus attracted the attention of their elders. Leung noticed that they were rather perky students. Usually the ones Harid brought were more disciplined. The professor said they were first years, counting children. Suddenly to the elf, Elena approached. She wondered if he could tell her his name and how old he was. The man's name is Leong Ersar, a latecomer to the acquaintance. And further your girl by the fact that he is 97 years old. Harid notes that he is a man in the prime of life. Carl joined the conversation. He asked if he would be their mentor during the trip. Leong reported that he is the head of House Ersar and a member of the El Salbekia board of directors. The boy couldn't believe it. He said it was an honor to meet him. The class teacher then stated that their manner at her place would be discussed later. After a little while, they were already in the dormitory, though it wasn't as rosy as they had imagined it to be. Carl asked if they were really going to live here. Chelsea was also horrified and said she couldn't do that. Leo asked if that meant they had an alternate option for a place to sleep. Elena knew that the president had a plan all along, and he was sticking to it. The guy said he agreed with them, so he thought of an alternative option too. And I've done some outside work. Maybe they want to do something similar too. Carl decided to get off the subject when he saw what was outside. He said, "What are they talking about? Let them better unpack their stuff." So everyone unhesitatingly started doing it and cleaning up the area. A few guys began to gradually make their way up the stairs. Carl remarked that everyone should know what the charm of all school trips is. It is, of course, peeking at the girls. Suddenly, they saw someone right in front of them. It was Chelsea, who saw the uninvited guests and was clearly in a bad mood. That's why I immediately used the circle of wind to chase them away. Then Leo turned out to really enjoy the ride. In that case, perhaps he should take a walk. And just as he opened the door and kicked out into the street, a girl approached him. It turned out to be a messenger, who said the head of the house wanted to meet with him. In the end, the protagonist had no choice but to go to the meeting. When the head of the house saw him, he motioned for him to come in. He has an emergency right now, so he apologizes. Couldn't he start by taking a little rest and waiting? The guy said no problem. It turns out that they have a huge number of interesting exhibits on display here. So he asked if he could have a look. The owner allowed him to do so. Looking around a bit, the guy saw that some of these things were quite ancient. And here was something special that caught his eye. It was a weapon hanging on the wall. Could it be Urquint? Lung wondered, asking how he knew about this weapon. His story, after all, is only passed down by the heads of the house. Leo realized he had made a mistake. So, trying to get out of the situation, he said that he had read a small note in an old folio in the Great Library of Lumer. The interlocutor said that if it was true, the Academy could surprise. The guy tried to touch the weapon and felt that it was filled with star mana. However, this is a retort. Still, he knows about the real Urquinta. He remembered a story that happened a long time ago. Back then, Luna had asked to see this self-protecting dagger for the owner. He wondered what the others thought of it, so she then asked Kyle to take a look at it too. I wondered how he felt about this weapon. The guy noted that she looked like a goblin who decided to rob travelers. Of course, the interlocutor was infuriated by this. It so happened that it originally belonged to the moon. However, she gave the blade to her apprentice, Velkia, and just literally on the eve of the last campaign in the war against Tartaros, Velkia lost it. Lung told them that Urquint this award their ancestor received after going through the heroic chronicles of Velkia. Much to the dismay of the heroic chronicles, weapons obtained by the heroic chronicles cannot be used by anyone but the owner. Now Leo found out why he looked like a replica. The head of the house asked him to sit down. Herod tells him that the boy is studying all the subjects at the same time. And it turns out he's the representative for Lumer this year. Does he understand that correctly? Leo confirmed it. The elf knew that such a request on his part might seem rude. After all, they hadn't just met. But he wonders if the guy could meet his granddaughter. His granddaughter is a first-year Cyrenian. This is a very talented girl who entered with round honors. However, she lost her motivation to study after joining the academy. Thus, the man thought, meeting an outstanding student of another race like him might reinvigorate her craving for knowledge. In the end, the hero headed out to meet her. But he didn't understand whether the head of the house was sure that he should have given him the key to her bedroom. So to begin with, he knocked on the door, and surprisingly, it opened on its own. Leo looked inside and saw it was a mess. He marveled at how much dust there was after all. Also paid attention to the wall and saw that this girl is a fan of great heroes. Of course, he knew that there were always kids who liked that sort of thing on this over-the-top. The next thing he saw in the closet was Siren's uniform. Suddenly the boy heard himself being called grandfather. Arron had just woken up, so she confused him. She asked him if he thought it was rude to enter his adult granddaughter's room like that, but she soon realized it wasn't her grandfather at all, and an awkward pause hung in the room. After which, Arron screamed heavily, terrified. She was terrified of the man in front of her, so she hid under the blanket. Leo was calm, and so he greeted her and introduced himself. He had come here to meet her at her grandfather's request. After saying that, I never heard an answer to everything. So it wasn't long before he noticed that her collection of books about Kyle was even comparable to his. Interesting to see how the elves actually saw him. It turns out that the great conquest of the monsters in the northern mountains, according to their historians, was his doing. Well, that's pretty good. Arron was interested when he heard that and crawled out from under the blanket. She wondered if he liked Kyle, too.